OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
Bang on 7:30. You're very welcome along to the Off the Ball Breakfast Show. We're here all the way through until 10 this morning. If you want to get in touch, at Off the Ball AM on Twitter. You can leave a comment on our YouTube stream, youtube.com/Off the Ball. Or, of course, you can always get us by old school text. 0879 180 180 is the number. Shane's here. Shane, good morning to you.
Good morning. We don't have a fax, do we? Fax machine, no?
No. Although I think probably there are apps on the computer which you can actually fax through to now.
All right.
You know,
Jesus, technology.
You're very old school there, Shane.
Yeah. Bit of nostalgia.
Yeah. Cameron's here too. Cameron, good morning to you.
Good morning. I believe our carrier pigeon was shot down somewhere over France.
Cooked.
Oh, right.
Cooked and eaten.
Jesus. It's terrible.
Really terrible. Anyway, good morning.
Pigeon tastes surprisingly nice.
It does not, does it?
It does, yeah.
Do you get it with shot in it, like in Succession?
No.
No. Okay.
That was the Ortolans.
No. Do you remember they go to the mother's house and she has pigeon? And she says, I'm sorry, it's not a double cheeseburger with truffle fries.
What does Greg and his grandfather eat in Succession where they have to put the napkin over their head? Remember?
That's not the grandfather, that's Tom.
Sorry, it's Tom. Yeah, that's right.
That's Ortolan. Ortolans.
Right.
Ortolans.
Ortolan. Ever had Ortolan?
Well, it's legal.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It's supposed to be illegal.
So no.
Yeah.
So, on the record, no.
Francois Mitterrand, a big fan of it. And I think had it with Charlie Hawley at one point.
Right.
That was the first time I ever came across the thing about this, because you're so ashamed that you're eating this whole bird and it explodes.
That's why. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You should try sometime.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you should try everything once in your life.
Yeah.
That's legal.
I do that when I eat a takeaway as well, because you have that takeaway guilt. So you just put a towel over your head.
Yeah. No one needs to watch.
Absolutely the same thing.
Yeah.
No one needs to watch you eat that kebab.
No, it's true. Yeah.
The shame.
Is that actually meat?
Yeah, you'd wonder. Spinning around in the thing.
Anyway, we got distracted.
Yeah. Don't know how we got there, but sure, look.
There is an alternative universe where we would this morning be preparing for the bandwagon to crank into full overdrive, where Ireland will be preparing for a game against England in the last 16 of the World Cup. We'd have a World Cup warm-up this weekend. Ireland are playing Italy in rugby as a warm-up for the Rugby World Cup, which is now hurtling towards the tracks. There'd be some Irish players being transferred in advance of the Premier League season, and maybe if the sporting gods had been truly shining on us, we'd be getting ready for a replay of Dublin Kerry, which would be a whole Dublin Kerry weekend where it's the men's on the Saturday and the women's on the Sunday. Instead, it feels like it's after the Lord Mayor show and there's not that much for us to get stuck into.
There's the championship kicking off this weekend. # all Leeds are we. If you want to throw that in the mix too.
Is the championship kicking off?
Yeah.
Oh
Leeds
God.
Cardiff, baby.
Oh my God.
3:00 Sunday.
That snuck up big time. Yeah.
There you go. Get in there, Leeds fans.
It does feel strange the season being over. I know we're into August now, but like having no football to look forward to or hurling is like, what do we do? I know the club will kick in.
You can go watch some scraps and club matches if you want.
I went last weekend. I went to an intermediate relegation playoff in Monaghan.
Yeah, was it good?
Yeah, it was enjoyable enough, but like it's just it fills the void a little bit. To be fair, when it's your own club involved, I guess. But yeah, it's there's just something missing.
Did you win?
My club team won. Monaghan Harps won. Yes,
right.
5 points down at half time. Ger won by 7 in the end. 6 in the end. So the Monaghan club football game is pretty strong. Some counties I'd say you're going, and the quality mightn't be too hectic, but at least people have something to watch. It's just it all feels a bit soon, you know.
It does feel a little bit soon. Even a fortnight. I think even an extra fortnight if the hurling was the first Sunday in August and the football was the second Sunday in August.
It just came very thick and fast. We'd barely gotten over the hurling and suddenly we're being thrust into a football final.
And now it's done?
And now it's done.
It was also,
cool.
Even when I was down doing the interviews in Kerry and Dublin, and even the hurling as well, like they were all lamenting the fact that there was only a 2-week lead into the final. Like you need at least a 3 just to feel the buzz, the general vibe, the rumours that will start to circulate in camps about injuries and whatnot. Like you need that. And then it should be, of course, but they spoke about it in the paper review on Sunday, it should be a national holiday.
Well, so Mick O'Keefe was making that point. I was about to bring that up. I think we might have played the clip on the show yesterday about how something needs to happen over the whole weekend and the whole kind of Croke Park area needs to be on fire. Wait and see what Dublin is like when the college football comes, right? It's going to be incredible. It's going to be this incredible takeover of the city, and they've managed to do that in the space of less than a decade. Like it's even shorter. And when you think about it, it didn't even exist during COVID, right? Whereas we've had all the way back to 1884 to come up with a plan to make something special happen in the city wherever it's happening and in the general area. But there's just this reluctance. It's like, sure, it might rain. Nobody will come out if it rains. And why, I don't know.
On a practical level, what do you mean? As in, I suggested the flyover and that sort of thing by the Irish Air Corps, but that I was accused of being militaristic, maybe in that regard.
You're pro NATO. We know that.
There you go.
Yeah.
But what other sort of things are we talking here? Like, is it just look at the Super Bowl and see what they do and do that?
But Dennis Walsh made that piece yesterday in the Times saying that the Kilmacud Sevens doesn't go on anymore, and that's a big part of the weekend.
Does it not go on?
Well, it wasn't on this weekend.
Are we sure?
That's because it's Kilmacud 8s now, apparently. The extra
Well, you set him up and Shane knocks him out of the park.
Yikes. That was very nice. But it doesn't feel like a festival of Gaelic football, and it didn't really feel like a festival of hurling the week before.
So I couldn't tell from what Mick was saying that the Sevens was happening and nobody knew about it because people weren't making a weekend of it anymore. And look, I do accept that a lot of people were coming up and going back down on the same day because
cost.
Frankly, it's ridiculously expensive, and so you can't just do this. But I don't know, music outside, arrive early. So on the way, I was like, they're playing the Stunning very loud. But actually the Stunning were in the stadium playing, which I didn't know about.
And the Merry Wallopers.
For the hurlers, apparently there was the Merry Wallopers. Again, I was there relatively early. I saw both of the Jubilee teams being presented, although I couldn't actually hear because for whatever reason the sound in the Cusick is nowhere near as good as the sound in the Hogan.
Right.
I couldn't hear the speeches. I couldn't hear Larry going now when the crowd were booing David Goff. So I don't know. I just think that it'll be interesting to see. The City Council managed to put on a brilliant homecoming for the team, so obviously they're capable of doing stuff. And it'll be interesting to see what they do on Thursday for the women's football on O'Connell Street and what kind of a crowd shows up for that.
GAA fans are creatures of habit. I can't imagine Dublin and Kerry fans are fans of counties that are used to being in finals. All of a sudden, we have music actually an hour before throw-in this venue. They're going to be in the same pub they've been in for 40 years for finals. Yeah,
maybe, but there are also you can bring the families, which is the start of it, and that'll attract people to see what's going on. So I don't know, is there a skills competition on the pitch beforehand for at 2 o'clock for the 3:30 throw-in, because the teams are coming out from 2:45, and I don't know, also could there be music outside around the vicinity? Could there be better food trucks close to the ground as opposed to here's a bit of salmonella burger for you, good quality stuff maybe? Or do we not want the quality? Are we we're suspicious? I'm sorry, it has a sauce on it, I'm not eating it.
I think, we do have to be more outside the box. We have to be more outside the box in terms of how we deliver this as a product rather than just a game. I don't think we should necessarily look over to America just because, they can mythologize absolutely anything. The Super Bowl is only a 60s invention, and it seems to have been carved into Plymouth Rock, the way they go on about it. It takes a long time for those things to bed in. I know when they had the performer, who was it that did the song before the Champions League final in that disastrous Stade de France game, and she was really annoyed because no one was listening to her. It takes a while for that to become quote unquote tradition, so we need to look at something that maybe is a little bit more outside the box, and maybe that is the Merry Wallopers and it was just that the weather wasn't good enough on Sunday, or maybe it is something along those lines. But I think getting an instant fix, we're probably,
Camila Cabello was that singer.
Yes, yeah, and she was not happy. But football fans aren't there for a performance and a 4-hour kind of spectacle.
Do we not have a halftime show where they quickly set up a stage on the Croke Park pitch? I'd pop U2 or I don't know the Script. Who's big these days with the kids?
I think it's interesting that the BBC managed to add a little bit of Stardust straight away. First year, what are we going to do? Bit of Stardust. We've thought about this.
Yeah.
Here's a slightly tangential. But all very gettable people. Anyway,
would the minor final being on the same day help?
No. I think the move to remove the minor final being the most important thing of all time is a good move generally, because since 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds. But you could definitely put Joe McDonagh before it. Now the atmosphere was really good for the Dublin Kerry game because everybody there was there to see Dublin and Kerry, and I don't know if there was 10,000 tickets gone for
Talton.
Or Joe McDonagh in the hurling. Would that change things? I don't think it would. It was very clear that this wasn't the festival that the hurling final was, where all of hurling comes together to watch the hurling. This was Dublin. This was Dublin GA and Kerry GA, and nobody else. You can all watch at home, lads, and maybe that's what it should be. But I don't know. Yeah. Brian says they should bring back the minor final the same day as I don't know. There should be some game on before. Do we need music to get fans to go? Really? Ask Scrimshaw. No, I'm just saying something good. It doesn't have to be. I don't know. But bigger brains than ours could think about this for a while and come up with some plans and have, here's a program. I would like the 3-point, the slam dunk contest equivalent for hurling and football. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure that we could come up with some stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what the equivalent is, because you get people in basketball matches doing the whole layup, 3-pointer, half court shot, that sort of thing. But do people care about that? I think Irish people are just built differently. We're immune to bullshit, and I feel like that sort of thing, sometimes people are like, the state of this. We won't even stay on. It's not
bullshit. Having crack isn't bullshit.
No, it's not. But
having something organised for families isn't bullshit.
Forced crack is bullshit, though.
But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be shit. It doesn't have to be actually crap. That's the thing. It could be good, but we can't do anything. It might not be good. Somebody might criticise us. Oh no, I'm terrified of trying something. Oh Jesus.
Well,
let's say button down and repress for all our lives. Somebody might not like this.
They're always trying the wrong thing. They moved the feckin' sent
before the match. Always trying the wrong thing. It's the Homer Simpson line. The moral is never try.
Just never try.
Yeah,
never change things. And the point with Shane, and the pity there's no singing or chants in the pubs beforehand. All you have is "Come on, you boys in blue" or "Kerry, clap, clap, clap." Yeah, and we've had that discussion before, the lack of chance.
Anywho, let's move on.
Yes, yeah.
Were you at the celebrations, Shane, last night? Were you?
I passed very near to the celebrations.
Right, and what was it like?
I diverted and could hear the bagpipes and different things emanating from Smithfield Square. The waves or the sails on Smithfield Square lit up in blue. Sounded like great crack, I have to say, and there was a lot of Dublin jerseys in the pubs and spilling out in the general Smithfield area. Big Garda presence, big security presence. It sounded like good crack. I didn't bother peeping the head down, but I think for Dublin people to have that massive long 2-year drought over, obviously the emotion has just poured out of them. Fair play to them. I think they've enjoyed this one.
Is your bitterness increasing or decreasing?
Decreasing. Monaghan are now surely we might probably move up to third in the rankings because the
power rankings are coming up a bit later.
Yeah, they lost to the eventual winners.
Should have done our coming up. I'll do our coming up now, and then you can tell me about how you're less bitter. Yeah. So Seán O'Sullivan's going to give us the Kerry view at 8 o'clock. We're going to go to Australia to talk to Kathleen McNamee about the bitter fallout from the Republic of Ireland's exit at the World Cup. Lyndsey Davey is going to preview the look back at the women's football semi-finals for us. Our power rankings with Tommy from 9, and we'll play you out with Boylan O'Sullivan, who said that David Clifford is the footballer of the year. Nailed on, no questions asked. But he's not the betting favourite. The players get to vote for this though, so there's a good chance that maybe, I don't know.
I tend to agree that David Clifford, he is the footballer of the year, isn't he?
Well, I don't know. I think that coming down the stretch. Do you know?
Are you you're a man who's always often given out about double points for finals. And
I'm all in favour of double points for finals.
Oh right, okay.
I'm the footballer of the year. The year that Donaghy came off the bench in the semi-final and was man of the match in the final was Kieran Donaghy. He didn't get it. They didn't even nominate him. But you do it in an All-Ireland final when everything it's absolutely double points for a final.
Then what's the point? That's just
the point is that it's the two best teams finally coming up against each other.
If it's footballer of the year,
but the year
footballer of the fortnight will be a different award.
But even so, I think we're probably blinkered by his flashes of brilliance sometimes. That he didn't play all that well in that quarterfinal against Tyrone, save for that moment where he kept the ball in from going out on the side spectacularly. Other than that, he wasn't that remarkable. So I don't think it's quite him. I think probably Brian Fenton, or I think James McCarthy maybe. to be honest.
Well, look, McCarthy definitely...
He's going to win it, like McCarthy, yeah.
I think Fitzsimons has a case. But anywho, we'll talk about that a little later on, I suppose.
Can someone answer this question for me? And PWGC has asked the same question. Can someone explain how and why Dublin fans get to fill out the hill every time? Do they just buy the tickets first, or do they get first dibs on the tickets as it's a home game?
It's a home game, we all know that.
Well, it's definitely a home game. But like, I was hearing rumours before the semi-final that Monaghan fans had in their droves got the early link and bought tickets for the hill, and I was thinking, Dublin fans aren't going to like this. Like, Monaghan fans have taken over the hill. Then you get to the match, that's Dublin majority, and you're like, well, like, what happened here? Like,
home advantage counts.
Well, how do they get the tickets first? Sure, like the tickets go on sale at the same time for everyone because it's apparently a neutral venue. So, how do Dublin fans get the hill?
I don't know. I don't know. We should maybe ask
someone
questions.
Let us know. Yeah,
that's a good question. Maybe we could do some journalism on it. We will. Yeah, we could ask official people to tell us officially what the process is and how the makeup of it is decided, because it is definitely like there was a brilliant lyrical description of it by Paul Galvin during the football pod, talking about looking up and the hands are like shoals of fish, and you know, there are definitely moments in the game where all of a sudden "Come on, you boys in blue" starts to ring out and you're like, oh, you're suddenly jolted out of the moment of the game. So it clearly has an impact.
That was what Jack O'Connor said. He said the turning point was scoring into the hill for Paddy Small.
Yeah that was an own goal, wasn't it? Is that not an own goal?
Well, if his original shot was on target, which
was it on target?
It was very close.
I don't think it was.
It was very.
Was it going over?
I think it was going low. Was it?
I don't know. I haven't seen. Still haven't.
You have to give it to Paddy Small, to be fair.
Yeah, in fairness.
It was a heroic attempted block by Paul Murphy, but probably inadvertently led to the goal. There's a few of the Kerry lads I'd say be looking back at some of the moments. Gavin White in particular.
Yeah, I think so. On Saturday's show, I said that the Gavin White Paddy Small was the only no-brainer. I thought that Gavin White would have Paddy Small in his pocket all day in terms of matchups. So I'd like to apologise to Paddy Small off the back of that.
I thought the Kerry defence was sensational. I think Kerry are going to have a long, dark winter of the soul where they are wondering how the hell did they manage to lose that game. And it is really interesting. The celebrations, the outpouring of pure joy from the Dubs and the conversations that they've been having about whether or not this is the end. Desi says they didn't use the Last Dance motif as a thing because it could be a bit inauthentic, but certainly a lot of the players were talking about this probably is the last dance for a lot of people. So you know, for some of them that motivation was there. I thought Fenton's interview, I don't know when he was talking yesterday at some point, and they were all loose yesterday. They were all just like totally, they've been on the piss for at least 24 hours. The pints were literally in the post-match press conference and I don't think they'd stopped. So when they were chatting yesterday, they were like Fenton saying that he did it for Desi, obviously his family, and he did it for Desi and he did it for James McCarthy. They were his motivations. But he brought up unprompted the COVID breach, the training breach, people saying Desi should step aside, us getting relegated and them questioning Desi, and I don't know, that whole narrative that was like, oh, he's not this. Desi Farrell deserves unbelievable credit for getting everybody back, for bringing Pacquiao Roy in, for retreating to the background to a point where, okay, I'm fully aware of everything that's happening here, and then getting them all to perform at the level they performed. Like, Mannion came back and was man of the match. McCaffrey came back and Fenton goes, everybody's scared of Jack McCaffrey. The only other player in Ireland who anybody is scared of like that might be Clifford, but every time McCaffrey gets the ball, the opposition is terrified. And he's right. Like,
because he's so quick,
that's the kind of analysis that everybody was doing in the pub afterwards, like, oh geez, everybody's scared of McCaffrey out there, and Fenton's like, everybody's scared of McCaffrey. It's like, you know, I don't know, I think
they're honest, open and honest. I saw Cluxton and a few of the lads were in the Boar's Head early enough yesterday having their few pints, and Sam Maguire was with them. The one thing I would say, and Cora Staunton made a similar point on the Sunday game, was that I think we in the media and generally people in the pubs, those conversations as well, retire players ourselves. It's like, oh, they've reached this age. There's a bit of ageism here. Like, we assume a player of a certain vintage or age is automatically going to hang up the boots after a season like this. The same suggestion was made to Conor McManus and another player, any player in their mid-30s at the moment. Like, some of these players mightn't be having this thought in their head whatsoever, and then they're reading in the papers, oh, wonder will they hang up their boots, and all these column inches that being covered with by it. So I think it's something we need to be very careful with. I think in Irish sporting circles is, I guess, wanting a newsline, is this player going to keep playing? But look, sometimes it's not even in the player's head.
I think though that like James McCarthy brought it up.
Well, unprompted. To be fair, him and Dean Rock did. Yeah.
Brilliant Dean Rock post-match interview with Aisling O'Reilly, where again he was just completely relaxed, talking about this is going to be the best fortnight of his life. He's off to Marbella this week for a bit of golf, and then he's coming back and he's getting married. So it's like, scored the last point in the game. My last kick ever is like the insurance point to beat Kerry in an All-Ireland final into the hill. And then I was like looking back at Dean Rock's career. His record was unbelievable. He played 68 successive league and championship matches.
Right, Jesus. Started or played? Or as in
started. Started.
Jesus.
From the time that he got into the team, he played 68 successive games. I'm like, oh my God. That's so you kind of forget that this generational player is cycling out of the system at the moment. So.
He was just relieved talking to Aisling because he didn't have to change his wedding plans.
Exactly,
Jesus.
The replay would have scotched the wedding.
Yeah, the pressure on that.
Here's the point. Andy Jennings says they should put on a weekend event similar to the Stony Batter Festival, close off a few streets from constant traffic, install outdoor seating outside boozers, have quality food stalls and live music. That's exactly it. That's exactly what we're talking about. No corporate bullshit. No invented, we're here to have fun. No, hey, hup ho, hey. None of that bollocks, right? Like let a local organisation like the Stony Batter Festival take it over and go, here, we're going to support you with funding and we're going to give you guaranteed space that's safe for people to come, and you could do all sorts of cool community things that are not based around like a glitzy, as you say, corporate wankology.
Yeah, like even get the likes of If Being in a Heron and these cobblestone ones out to play a bit of music on the streets. And I love the comic cons and the autograph conventions that they do. You get to meet your actors and they're all sitting around at a table and you pay a tenner or whatever to get a signature. Like the GA, obviously, of course, an amateur sport, but you could have Barney Rock sitting there, you could have Pat Spillane sitting there, you could have Brolly sitting, like one from each county, and there's 32 Owl lads sitting around, and even Owl lads would flock to meet them and talk to them about their memories growing up and the nostalgia, and get a wee signature or a programme from the 74 All-Ireland final signed by them.
Phones now, Shane, people take photographs.
Well, they do, yeah, of course. I'm old school, but autographs and selfies, and maybe you charge a £5 and the money goes to a worthy cause or something. I don't know.
Charity of their choise.
Yeah, so that's something I'd get involved in.
We should talk about the row between Vera Pauw and Katie McCabe. It's all over the front and the back pages of the papers. Front of the Irish Times is the picture of McCabe coming over to her and asking for substitution to be made. Pauw obviously tells everybody afterwards that it was Sinead Farrelly that McCabe wanted subbed off, and then McCabe apparently makes the change on the pitch anyway herself. So I don't like. Is this a massive deal, or is this like just the type of stuff that happens in teams all the time?
Yeah, it's the time-honoured tradition of a player and a manager fighting at a World Cup for Ireland and other places.
Yeah, but
it was made a big deal by Katie McCabe putting up the emoji on social media. I think that probably heightens it a bit. Thousands and thousands of likes and retweets or whatever you want to call it. That probably stoked the fires a little bit. And I noticed it during the game. I was actually, while I was watching the match on here yesterday, I noticed after that 65-70 minutes McCabe was shouting something over. I was trying to lip read what she was saying, but she was clearly not happy with the sideline, and there was a couple of decisions that she wanted amended. So I don't know.
It's obviously not a great look that it comes out, right? Or does it matter that it comes out? Are we all too precious about the manager saying, she wanted to change, I just said no? Is that not the type of thing that happens in a relatively straightforward environment where people are free to express an opinion, but the person whose job it is to make the decision makes the decision, having taken on board the feedback?
Well, I think
I've heard what you said. I've decided no.
But they've escalated it because they've taken it beyond the pitch and kept talking about it. I'm sure Sinead Farrelly's like, geez, Vera, thank you so much for dragging me into this.
Well, why would you be blaming Vera? It was Katie McCabe who wanted her subbed off.
Yeah, but why name the player?
Well, it's Katie McCabe because McCabe was like, I want rid of her. And so what did she want? I mean, it's actually Katie McCabe who's asking for Sinead Farrelly to come off.
Yeah.
Why would Sinead Farrelly be pissed off with Vera Pauw?
Because she brought her up in the press conference,
and
she's dragged into it. Yeah, but it would have stayed on the pitch. We wouldn't have, it's better to be silent and be thought a fool than to speak and have everyone know, I think being dragged into that can't help. It doesn't really help the morale of what seems to be a pretty touchy atmosphere anyway.
Yeah, and so is Katie McCabe right to name the individual? Like, I want her off, or is like we need to make a change, get some fresh legs on?
Well, until
Vera Pauw says it over there. She's the one I want gone.
Until Vera says it, it's all hearsay, and it's like, well, the rumor is it's Sinead Farrelly.
I don't know. I
for
think
someone to come out and say, yeah, it's her that wanted it off, especially given
maybe
Sinead Farrelly's profile as a player who was sort of parachuted in late on in the day.
Yeah, I mean that's so. Why did Katie McCabe want her? Why did she single her out? And was Vera Pauw correct that she was actually doing really well? So here's the thing: what if Katie McCabe was actually completely wrong, right? What if she was right? I don't know. Is the thing, but like
it's insurrection either way, isn't it?
Well, is it insurrection?
Well,
when you're the captain of the team and the game is going well or badly, are you not supposed to be giving feedback to the manager?
Yeah, it can be suggested in a certain way, can't it? You can run over to the manager, have a little whispered conversation, no wild gesticulation or shouting back and forth.
There
wasn't much, like, really, but like. But it was more public than a little casual whisper that could certainly happen between a manager and a captain, and just the whole fallout and the little emojis online, and Denise O'Sullivan talking about distraction as well in her tweet. She just threw that word in as well as she was thanking the fans. Like, it just feels a little bit easy for these players to now, in the last 15-20 minutes of the last group game, to then decide, okay, now we're gonna say something.
Get their
I'm gonna get this in now because the fallout from this, like, Vera mightn't be in charge anymore. I'm gonna get this in right now. I'm gonna show my public, I guess, displeasure with some of her decisions on pitch and whatever else. So
you think this was calculated by McCabe?
Well, if this
throw Vera Pauw under the bus.
If it was done in the last 15-20 minutes of the first game, I'd be like, okay, well, Katie McCabe clearly has an issue here. Let's sort it out. But it feels like, okay, the World Cup is about to end. We can't get through anyway. We're drawing the match against Nigeria. Sinead Farrelly's not playing that badly, let's be honest. So why bring this up now as a major issue, and why get involved by putting up a silence emoji on Twitter, which you know before you press publish is going to stoke the flames even further, and it's going to cause headlines.
I think she miscalculated the effect of that. I think she thought she'd have much more support on her side, because it's her personality, Katie McCabe. She's not a shrinking violet at all. There's even a Twitter account called Did Katie McCabe Get a Yellow Card, which everybody I know follows. So she's known for being this feisty character, and I think that sort of plays into it.
That's fair enough.
But I think it's backfired tremendously because it looks a bit petulant and silly.
And I understand Katie wanted to give her point of view as well. Like, she has every right to, but just in a certain way, maybe that is less public at a World Cup, it might be better. And also, look, Vera Pauw, there are all the allegations against Vera Pauw. None of us know the veracity or otherwise of those.
She does deny them all.
She does deny them, of course. But the fact is, like, the team are flying home this evening. They'll have their homecoming. At the very least, she probably, and this point was made in the last couple of days, deserves to be part of this is the first Irish team to go to a Women's World Cup. Like, she deserves to be part of those celebrations, and whatever happens contract-wise after that.
Yeah. Are there any football reasons why Vera Pauw shouldn't be given a new contract?
I don't think so. I think we're doing the best with what we have. I'd like to see someone come in and be more creative in terms of how they utilise the attack.
It's going to be Tom Elms. Like, he is going to be the next manager when Vera leaves, you'd imagine. That seems to be the suggestion.
Is it? Okay.
That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing from reports, that the players love him. There's a bit of continuity there. That obviously going into the Northern Ireland game and all the rest, that would be the next name on the list. So I guess stylistically from Vera Pauw, that's not much change if it is Tom.
So he's the assistant coach.
He's the assistant to Vera at the moment. So like. Look, I don't know what the odds are on the next manager, but certainly the gauge is that he will be the next coach after Vera Pauw, which would suggest that they do want continuity. They do want the same style of play to continue forward, and it's worked. It's got them to a World Cup. But yeah,
I wouldn't assume that the assistant manager always does exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, fair.
You can always come in and have your own stamp on things. So I wasn't. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I think it was maybe the Irish Independent that read it in, possibly.
Okay.
But certainly there have been reports that Tom Elms is the favourite candidate, popular with the players, that sort of thing. So I mean, if the players have a say in this, certainly Tom Elm's name will be in the mix, you'd imagine.
Yeah, that is interesting. You know, it'll make for an interesting podium on Thursday. Like, she absolutely not alone deserves to be, but it's a great achievement to get to the World Cup, and we played well. I actually thought we were more ambitious on the field than we have been at various stages, and we've been relatively unlucky against superior teams, and we don't score a whole heap of goals. So look, I don't know what everybody expected.
No, and I think a lot of the people who have been complaining maybe about Vera Pauw's tactics are watching this team for the first time at this World Cup, and
well, in fairness,
really appreciated.
Karen Duggan has been complaining about it on Koi Gig and now in the Irish Times as well for a long period of time. And obviously knows exactly what she's talking about.
Absolutely.
But let's wait and see. You know, let's wait and see if the new manager comes in and suddenly we're playing with Katie and Denise behind a striker, and everybody else, you know, they're given we're playing with 2 10s or 2 8s. Let's wait and see exactly what comes next, because I don't know. I think to me it doesn't look like there's huge footballing reasons why you wouldn't be given Vera.
Drew at Nigeria yesterday. You know, and Nigeria, of course, probably brought off their star striker with maybe 20-25 minutes left. They knew that the Australia game was going a certain way. They already had progression guaranteed. But still, clean sheet in the World Cup for Ireland. First point in the World Cup for Ireland. There are massive positives out of yesterday's game for sure. Denise O'Sullivan was eventually moved in this World Cup to her favourite position of number 10. So there's so much to be proud of. It's obviously disappointing from our perspective that we lost to Canada in the way we did, I think, particularly.
Yeah, and look, I don't know. I guess I'm wondering, is it that big a deal that the captain says something and the manager says, she said that, I said no? Like, maybe that's all that's happened here. Do you know? Now, because she tweeted afterwards, this is definitely a much bigger story.
Yeah.
But maybe you're supposed to have...
for you.
Maybe you're supposed to.
I nearly have more issue with the tweet than the actual in-game conversation.
Yeah, it's an in-game thing, like, largely, like, oh, she's tired, you know, I don't know. Anyway, we should very briefly talk about Ben Healy, who was man of the match for Scotland at the weekend. Scotland have started their World Cup warm-ups a week ahead of us. They're already ahead of us. They're coming for us. They are coming for us, though.
Yeah.
Like,
final game.
Yeah. We are going to be their version of the Sitting Ducks, and hopefully we smash them the way Kerry smashed Tyrone. But
I don't know. I'm kind of worried. Ben Healy was really, 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 really good against Italy. I was very impressed. His crossfield kick for the opening try for Darcy Graham was on a sixpence.
Was it a strong Scotland team?
Strong enough, yeah. A lot of starters in there, mix of kind of players on the periphery, but mostly starters, and it was a pretty strong Italian team. So it wasn't a kind of walk over. Let's ease into this warm up. It was really, really excellent quality, much more than I was expecting. But Ben Healy was really, really good, and he's going to get a lot of game time at this World Cup. I just have a feeling that the way our pool is set up, you've got South Africa, us and Scotland obviously. I think Tonga are going to be the chaos factor in there in terms of how many players from the other three respective teams come out the other side without any scrapes. I feel there's going to be quite a few injuries from those across all the teams that are taking on Tonga, just the way they've set up and the quality of their backline. And I feel like Ben Healy he'll be on the bench at the very least for our final game against Scotland on October 9th, I believe.
He doesn't start, does he? Like, is there any universe now in which he challenges Finn Russell?
Not if Finn Russell's fully fit. No.
But could Finn Russell have a fallout with the coach? Finn Russell could have a fallout with the coach.
Yeah.
You know, although he will be on home turf for large portions of it, so you would expect maybe all those
in his comfort zone. Yeah.
All right, look, we got to move on. 3 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM. If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. 087 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can get us on Twitter at OffTheBallAM. We're going to take a quick break. We're back talking the Kerry side of things with Seán O'Sullivan next.
OTB AM.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
Manage the computer club in the next couple of years, no problem. I'm trying to say to you, sorry, I made a joke, but I'm trying to say it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just didn't feel like it was said in the right way.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, and download the OTB Sports app.
We didn't look madly any closer to scoring a goal, I don't think, unless you viewed that slightly differently.
No, we didn't. But the fact that we were dominating in the middle towards the final third was a massive step for me. And you can't expect everything to come at once, because it was so frustrating that we were at one stage defence kicking the ball long to nobody and chasing it down. I mean, that's a big step up today. And I think step by step, we're good defensively, we're solid. Now, when we win the ball back, can we transition to forward play? Can we move through from the defensive third to the middle third? That's the first step. We've done that really well today. I'm really confident with the midfield play from today. And then the next step is talking about creating those chances, getting on the end of them. And I guarantee you there isn't much work done on that, because as a manager, as a coach, you always work on your defensive side first, always. And we had to tweak that a little bit. We had to make sure we were hard to beat. That's the first thing you work on. So the last thing you work on, or one of the last things, is that you work on your attacking play, and then you talk about your whatever you're going to do, whether it's counter-attack, whatever it is. And that, that's something that, again, it's positive, because when Denise was getting up there, like, she was getting into lovely little areas. Then we're talking about decision making. We're talking about when to release the ball. Then we're talking about when to make those runs, because your wingers, when they're going to release the ball. All of these things have to come, and they'll come with a little bit more work. But it's really positive. That's the easy part, because everybody wants to do attack and play. So you don't have to motivate anybody. You don't have to encourage people to get the best out of them. That's the fun part of training.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
Yeah, you were listening to a bit of Koi Gig there in the ad break. We'll talk to Kathleen a little bit later on as well. 6 minutes past 8 this morning. Let's go to Kerry and hear a little bit about how the wake is going. Seán O'Sullivan's with us. Seán, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ger. Good morning, Shane. How are you, lads?
We're okay. How are you, hon?
We're getting there, Ger. Yeah, Tuesday morning after an All-Ireland defeat, I've been there, unfortunately. Actually, the Tuesday morning is probably the worst, because yesterday you would have had the distraction of the homecoming, and you probably would have had a few beers Sunday night to ease the pain, and yesterday, and then you wake up this morning, probably. Usually we would have woke up in Killarney somewhere. And that's when it kind of hits you that things just didn't go your way on Sunday. So I can feel now for the lads in the management this morning. But look, that's life, that's football. We got to move on. But yes, Sunday will certainly be one that really, really, I think we live to regret. But anyway, on we go.
I was having a conversation with Seán in the aftermath of the game, and he said it felt like the Tyrone games, the Tyrone All-Ireland finals. I actually thought Tyrone were better teams on the day in those All-Irelands, and so they merited their victory in a way. This one, I'm sure Kerry definitely feel like they kicked it away, and that they were at least the equal, if not actually better than Dublin. And so, and that's not a knock on Dublin. All my Dublin friends afterwards, when I was putting this theory, shut up, that's nonsense. I was like, it's actually, when you think about it, it's the hallmark of a truly great team to get over the line when you're not necessarily the best team in the game. And anyway, what's your take on all that?
Yeah, no, the Tyrone games for me would be different too. I think we were just beaten on the day by a superior outfit. This one is different, and again, absolutely 100% agree. It's no knock on Dublin. They showed us how to close out a game. That's very simply it. And I think down here we would have felt that maybe we'd learned how to do that, particularly since Jack came back. But I think he even alluded to himself yesterday. I think he was speaking to the media, and that maybe we haven't learned how to do it. And if this is another piece of education or another step in this team's process, then so be it. A tough one to take. But look, if that is the outcome of this down the tracks, then we'll just grin and bear it. But no, it's a different feeling. It's a different feeling because we didn't do a whole pile wrong. Kerry didn't do a whole pile wrong. It's just Dublin did a few things better. So what did Dublin do better? First of all, their kick out on both sides. They went after ours and cracked us on numerous occasions. we just couldn't get a handle on that man Cluxton and his relationship with Brian Howard. Did I see somewhere Howard won 8 kickouts on Sunday? That's crazy. That's unbelievable stuff, to have that relationship between a goalie and a midfielder. How Kerry didn't get to grips with that sooner, I don't know. Second half was better. Second half was definitely better. And of course, Howard then did so much running. His calf gave up on him and he had to go off. He was outstanding. I thought he had a great year, actually. And was Dublin's go-to guy in a lot of the championship games when it came to their kick-out. So maybe Kerry just didn't, I won't say they didn't plan for it, but it's certainly something that maybe they look back at and realise that they were beaten in that sector. And Dublin took their chances. They worked their scores better and smarter down the stretch, and we didn't, and we were forcing a little bit. David obviously had an off day, even though he got into positions where you would have expected him to kick scores that he would usually kick. He just had an off day. And all that milled together, especially going down into the last 10 minutes, caught us. Jack's point, I thought, was excellent in terms of, if you had said to the Kerry management when they were going to bed in their hotel Saturday night that Kerry would flip the third quarter, this famous third quarter that Dublin are renowned for, and I don't want to use the term in control of the game, because I'm not sure either team were ever in control of that game on Sunday, but Kerry found themselves in a very, very good place when they were the 3 points up before Gavin White's mistake. Unfortunately for him, a great year he had as well, and it's just unfortunate for him that a mistake like that happens on the biggest day. But I worried when that goal went in, because I thought, here we go, here's this oxygen that Dublin needed, here's this oxygen the Hill needed. Kerry could explode here, or implode, should I say. But I thought we reacted very well to go 3 up again. But I just think that the energy we expended getting back into that 3-point lead cost us in the end, cost us going down into that last 10 minutes. And another flip side is when we needed legs then, someone like a Stephen O'Brien, who we had started, wasn't there to come in off the bench to give us that energy. I know we brought in Adrian Spillane, I know we brought in Micheál Burns, but they are not those type of players. Killian Spillane as well, who kicked a great score. They aren't those type of players to give you those legs in the middle. Bruno Bigliet came on maybe a little bit too late for me. I felt he might have been a guy who maybe should have come on when McCaffrey came on, and go on McCaffrey to curb his influence. But look, these are all little things that you look at after. It's when you're in the heat of it and the middle of it that those decisions need to be made. But look, at the end of the day, Dublin showed us how to close out a game and close it out brilliantly, as they always do.
Yeah, that's the difficulty, is that you, like, when there's a period against a great team like Dublin and you do get into your 3-point lead, you have to drown them, because you know they're going to come back. In terms of the kick out, what could they do differently? Let's start with their own kick out. What could Kerry do differently next time?
In terms of our own kick out, I just felt that look, and again, it's easy to say, because you know when you're out in the middle of it, the opposition are obviously coming with some tactic. I just think that we lacked that little bit of bravery, we lacked that little bit of movement, particularly out to the flanks. I mean, Shane Ryan had to go long down the middle quite often when Dublin put the press on. But I mean, if a team are pressing you, the last place you want that ball put up for grabs is out around the middle, where if it's broken back, which it was on numerous occasions by Dublin, you're right down the centre of Kerry's defence there. I felt there could have been a little bit more lateral running out to the flanks from midfield, even if halfbacks got out of there and created little pockets for our half forwards to come down into. Little things like that. But again, it's very easy to say that when it's the heat of an All-Ireland final. And I mean, you have to give kudos to Dublin. They really went after it. The other side, I felt Dublin used the cluster kick out quite a bit. I thought they used it an awful lot. And Kerry seemed to be going man-to-man in a cluster kick out, which is very, very difficult to do, Ger. Because if you're in a cluster kick out or a bunched kick out, and you're trying to find your men, there's movement in there by the Dublin players. They're all bunched together, but they're still moving, little intricate movements, and Kerry are all of a sudden trying to find, well, where's my man? And it's very, very difficult to communicate that in a split second. All of a sudden, a Howard, mainly, or someone else is broken out of the pack, out for a simple pop, to a pocket from Cluxton, and Dublin are on the move down the field, and Kerry are still looking around, maybe looking for their men. So I felt that maybe forming a zone around the zone or a zone around the bunch might have been better for Kerry. They might have got to the outlet of the kick out a bit quicker, which obviously was Howard quite a bit, not always him, but it was him quite a bit. So look, again, these are things that Dublin or Kerry will learn from. I know Darren was talking to Joe yesterday evening and made a good point that these are all things that the Kerry lads will look back at. Unfortunately, with the new system, they have quite a bit of time now to look back at this stuff, but these are all little bits and pieces that they'll learn from Ger, and our age profile is good. We're young, bar Gainey, Paul Murphy and Stephen O'Brien. We're all under the 30 mark, so it's an education for these young lads, a tough one to take, but it's a good education at the same time.
Is the spread of scorers, Seán, or lack of spread of scorers a concern? I know Seán Kavanagh brought that issue up. I think it was maybe 5 different scorers for Kerry. I think you'd maybe 8 for Dublin, which doesn't seem like a big difference, but usually you have the likes of Gavin White and Thomas Sullivan and Jim O'Connor chipping in with a point or two, and that just didn't happen at the weekend. No, great point, Shane. Yeah, I was lying awake last night thinking about that amongst other things, but it was just not enough. And you see, this is the thing. Look, I've been in management rooms when you're thinking about starting a player or not starting a player, or holding a player back, or saying, no, geez, he's fresh, let's go with him. Stephen O'Brien is the case in point that I'm talking about. Like this, Stephen started because we're not getting the spread of scores, and we would have been hoping Stephen could have chipped in with a few from half forward. Stephen hadn't a bad game. I just want to make that very, very clear. He did not have a bad game. He got on plenty ball. He worked hard, got a few turnovers in the first half in particular. But we just didn't get the scores again from those areas where we needed. And look, everyone was talking about David going into the game, that he was going to need help. I think we got 1-9 outside of David from Paul, from Paddy, from Shawnee, but still not enough in an All-Ireland final. We knew that probably 1-15, 1-16, 1-17 was probably going to win the game, and we just didn't get there. We needed that as extra 2, 3, 4 points from somewhere else. I know Tom Sullivan had a shot late on. It was a tired kick. I can't even remember Diarmuid O'Connor getting in for a scoring chance. Stephen himself, I don't think, got a shot off. Paul Gainey will look back, and Paul played well, but that first goal chance was crucial. That was crucial. If that hits the back of the net, that's a great start for Kerry. I know he had a chance where he got inside Davy Byrne, was it, and clipped one off the post, went wide. So look, all these things added up to things that we needed. But at the same time, Shane, you flip that around, and I know you say Dublin had 8 different scorers, but Dublin missed chances too. Do you know what I mean? Paul Mannion, Con rattled the crossbar. He nearly broke the goals down in front of the hill. Brian Howard had a poor attempt early doors off his left. I've never seen him kick a shot off his left before. The things fellas do in an All-Ireland final when the pressure's on. So look, we can talk all day about Kerry missing their chances, but Dublin had their chances too. So there's no excuses there. And I was listening to you earlier on, Ger, before I came on. The tough thing about this is the Kerry defence played so well. Yeah, they played so well. Turnovers, tackling, putting the Dubs under pressure. People talk about Fitzsimons and the great game he had, putting David under pressure. Not for all his kicks now, I have to say. I think maybe a lot of people are looking at that through maybe blue tinted glasses. I mean, Fitzsimons had a great season. He had a great game. He curbed David's influence, but he wasn't on the. He wasn't down at his foot for every kick. I know David will be disappointed with some of the shots. His radar just wasn't in. But, the Kerry players were really, really putting the Dubs under pressure when they were kicking. So, our defence, no problems. But unfortunately, it was just up the other side of the field. We just didn't put them to bed,
The point you make about the age profile is really well made. And there's been a lot of talk, and part of it's gossip, some of it's very well informed about how many Dubs are going to step away. Is your understanding that the 3 lads you mentioned will be around and available next year? Because it feels like if Kerry are going to get over the line, they're going to need everybody to have a role, maybe not a starting role, but certainly to be able to influence things, set the tone in training, be an impact sub. Do you think those 3 are going to stick around?
I'd hope so, Ger, because look what got Dublin over the line. Do you know what I mean? That answers your question. The guys that came back for Dublin, or they went away and came back, was experience. And look, I can only imagine what Cluxton, McCaffrey, Mannion brought to that whole Dublin setup outside of their playing capability, outside of their ability as footballers, what they brought to the dressing room. So if that Kerry team, because of their age profile, were to lose again a Paul Murphy, a Stephen O'Brien, two of them, all three of them, that's a real dent to the dressing room in terms of what they bring in terms of experience. So I'd be hoping they stick around. Is there anything to say that they wouldn't? I thought Paul Murphy had an excellent game. Like, he was very unlucky with the block on the goal early on. He got some great turnovers. He's still as fit as ever. He was one of the most consistent performers down here in county championship and club championship football last year. Can't see Paul walking away from it. Stephen O'Brien still has a lot to offer, considering that he had really no football at all played this year with his injury. So depending on how the body is, I would expect him to stick around. I suppose Paul Gainey is the one. He's the oldest. Did he have a poor game on Sunday? No. Would he look back and say he should have put away a few other chances? Possibly. So is there unfinished business for him? I'd like to think so. So out of those three, I can't see them stepping away, and I would hope not, because we need everybody. What we also need, though, Ger, is we need to go and find, and again, going back to Darren, I thought himself and Colin were excellent yesterday with Joe. We need a little bit more depth. And it's the one thing that I was disappointed with, and I know a lot of people in Kerry would have been disappointed with this year, is that we just didn't find a little bit more depth for the bench. I said it all year, Dublin had the strongest bench in the country. I think I was proved right. How do Kerry go and find that? They are out there. Are they a bit young yet? I think so. I saw them up close and personal with the under-20s for 2 years. There's still a little bit of development to go in a lot of players. But I think we need to maybe look now at possibly throwing a few of them into the league at the start of next year, because we just need to find a few fresh faces. We need legs. But look, that's for Jack and the management to go and look at club and championship football now. It's starting next weekend, believe it or not. So that's another story.
Is the bench that point has been made both in advance and in the wake of the match, Seán, that obviously Dublin's bench is so much stronger than Kerry's, and the strength and depth is a massive thing. But like, if you actually look at it, so Brian Bjuglia comes on, possibly in some people's books could have even started ahead of Paul Murphy maybe in that game. Adrian Spillane comes on, Killian Spillane comes on and scores a lovely point. Micheál Burns, I mean, that block by Burns late on, if Kerry go on to win that game, could have been a historic and famous All-Ireland final moment. Like, and then of course Tony Brosnan's obviously unlucky to miss out through injury. So is the depth that big a concern in Kerry?
It is, Shane, because all the players you mentioned there, Big Leo obviously started on last year's team, so yeah, you could make a case that he could possibly get in there, but none of those players have really, for me, had massive impacts when they're coming into games, particularly from the scoring perspective. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that at the end of the day, from a forward's perspective, scoring perspective, and talking as an ex-forward, you have to be coming in making an impact on the scoreboard for me, and it's something that's not. I think somebody sent me, look, the postmortems have been flying obviously since Sunday. There's screenshots and there's fellas doing stats on A4 pieces of paper and everything, but somebody did send me something about our scoring impact all this year from our half forward line and our subs. And it's just been nowhere near good enough in terms of game changers. And another concern for me would be our midfield replacements. Like, we brought Mike Breen on there on Sunday from Beaufort. Mike is naturally a half-back, centre-back. He was brought on midfield, for legs, because we were lacking them coming down the last 10 minutes, and Mike does have a good burst of pace and he can get up and down the field. But that's a concern as well, around the middle area there, the real engine room of the team. We don't seem to, after Diarmid and Jack, what do we have to come in there? Adrian Spillane can come in there sometimes, but he predominantly comes on or starts on the half-forward line. So for me, I think the lack of scoring power off the bench, having depth in those areas, Shane, is the concern. We seem to be okay defence-wise. We seem to have good cover there, and more to come, I would expect, from under-20 teams over the last few years. But it's up the other side of the field and in the middle of the pitch that I think people's concern is when they talk about depth and impact from the bench.
So in terms of midfield, right, is there a delegation en route to Australia to ask Mark O'Connor to hasten his return? Like, I'm not joking. It's the type of thing, you know, you would definitely be making the call, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It's, again, talking about the postmortems, his name was mentioned. Yeah, his name was mentioned a couple of times. I'm sure he's a natural guy to come in there. Look, for me, I don't know, to answer your question. The guy is really, really settled in Geelong, isn't it? He's flying. Was he part of an All-Irish? Was there a picture of the All-Irish half-back line there the other day or something, or half-forward line himself, Toohey and Mullins? So I can't see that man, but yeah, it's something that if there was even a chink of light in it, would you do it? I'll go if they want me to. No problem. I can go. Or give who's your reporter down there at the moment? Kathleen McNamee, is it?
Yeah, we can get her to call in. Yeah.
So look, yeah, it's sure. Look, he's a ready-made midfielder, like, you know, and was the best underage midfielder that we produced out of those minor teams and under 20 team, under 21 teams before he took off down under. So, but look, it's pie in the sky stuff at the moment, because it's just, he's obviously under contract and so on and so forth. So it's just post-mortem talk at the moment, I'm afraid.
Yeah, okay, because there was strong rumour was that he was certainly close or interested in coming back, and that could be tantalising for a number of years and it might never happen. Stephen Acumber obviously has come back but has just been blighted by injury, but certainly I think he started his first game at cornerback and then his second game was midfield and then he got injured, so they're obviously looking at him as a potential midfielder down the line as well. So, like, at least in the darkness that you're going through at the moment, there is some bright spark about, like, next year will be slightly different, there will be a bit more depth.
Oh yeah, Ger, and not just next year. This Kerry team are here to stay. This Kerry team are going to be around. Don't believe me. Listen, we're down today. We're down and we're very down and we'll be down for a while and those players will. But this Kerry team are going nowhere. They're a team absolutely full of fantastic players and they have a good management team and they will be back. They will learn, and they've learned harsh lessons from Sunday and really, really tough lessons. But there's a good crop of players coming. They need development, as I said. Mix them in. I think Jack referred to always trying to find one or two guys and mix them into the current group. And yeah, you will lose players. I'm hoping we won't, but yeah, you could possibly. But no, there's a bit of doom and gloom. But no, this Kerry team aren't going anywhere. They lost out to a fantastic Dublin side who knew and had the experience to close out a really, really big game. Kerry just need to learn that, and they will. I'm sure they will.
Excuse my ignorance on this, Seán. You talk about the lack of scoring power off the bench. I remember earlier in the year, and after certainly the Armagh game in the league, and Jack O'Connor was full of praise for a couple of the. So Donald Down O'Sullivan was one name that we mentioned of an inside forward who was shooting the lights out in the club game, played really well in a league game or two for Kerry. Darragh Roach as well from Glenflesk was another player that was kind of come to the fore. Like, is there a reason why these lads aren't, I guess, in consideration at this stage of the championship when as you say, that's exactly what you need off the bench?
Yeah, look, if I'm a Donald Downs and I'm a player who has playing for Kerry and obviously in on his radar, of course I'd be asking the hard questions of Jack. Maybe not this week, but I'd sit down with him and say, well, look, Killian Spillane, who obviously has that experience of playing in bigger games for Kerry, got on the other day ahead of me. You know, where's my role in this panel? You know, am I going to get time in the league? I know he got a few games last year. Is he going to get a better run this time round? Darragh Roach was a different one. He got injured. Excuse me. He damaged his wrist, and for whatever reason didn't get back in. But he's back playing club football again. I know he went to the States, but he's back playing club football again. So he's a guy that might pop his head up again at the start of the league next year. So definitely, like, you know, these guys have to ask questions of the management, and that's what the management are there for, Shane. You know, why didn't I get a chance here or a chance there? Certainly, it's questions they need to ask, but they are there as well, without a doubt. Yeah. Will we see more of them in the league come 2024? You'd like to think so, but we'll have to wait and see.
Can Kerry use this pain, Seán? Because you think when you lose a final to your great rivals, like Kerry lost to Tyrone in 05 and 08, but the following year went on to win the All-Ireland. So is that something that you I guess utilise in that winter of pain?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to. And like the thing is, look, you'll obviously this week is going to be long now, and they'll stick together. And I hope they stick together. They will. They're a good bunch. but you'll be back in the club next week, you know, and you'll park Kerry for a good bit. You know, you really will. It'll be there in the back of your mind, but you'll all of a sudden you'll park it because you have your club championship coming up, and then you have the county championship after that, and before you know it, you're at Christmas time, and yes, that's then when the phone calls will start about, okay, we're ready to go again. So, but of course you lose it. Yeah, absolutely. I think David in his speech in Killarney yesterday evening was already mentioning next year. Now, look, is that something a captain has to stand up and say to the public? Of course it is, but deep down, those lads will be, you know, ready to go again when the time comes. But for now, this week, they just need to try and forget about it, enjoy themselves. They've had a very, very good year, just couldn't get over the final hurdle. Some outstanding individual performances all season. They're probably going to end up with 5-6 All-Stars, I would think, possibly a Player of the Year as well. So they didn't do, as I said at the start of the call, they didn't do a whole pile wrong all year. They didn't do a whole pile wrong on Sunday. It's just on Sunday, Dublin did a few things better that Kerry need to learn from and bounce back next year.
Seán, we'll leave it there. Good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, lads.
We're sorry for your trouble. It's 8:30 this morning here on OTB AM, Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. We're with you every weekday morning between 7:30 and 10, and we're going to Australia. Kathleen McNamee, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Doing all right. How are we all?
So the front pages of all of our newspapers it's basically the photograph of Katie McCabe over talking to Vera Pauw, and I'm wondering, have you been? Are all the team functions finished now? They're on their way home. Or has there been anything extra that has happened since the press conference yesterday where Vera explained what had happened?
So there's been nothing extra beyond social media from the players. Katie McCabe obviously posting the emoji of the zipped face, and then Denise O'Sullivan also tweeted mentioning distractions off the pitch. So those are the only things that happened, but the team are heading back this evening, possibly on my flight. I'm not entirely sure. They're either on the one just before me or the same one. And there won't be anything then again until the homecoming on Thursday in Dublin.
And do we expect the homecoming to be that have made peace by then, or do we think that there's going to be like a fist fight on the stage?
Well, we were discussing this, a couple of the journalists that are over here last night, once we kind of all finished our duties for the evening. Like, could you imagine going back to the team hotel? You've been with these people for the guts of 2 months. You've lived in each other's pockets. You have Vera Pauw going into a press conference mentioning that Katie McCabe wanted Sinead Farrelly off the pitch, and everyone is just wrecked and kind of just probably wanted to unwind a little bit what the sort of atmosphere is going to be in the room during that. So I imagine by the time Thursday rolls around, they will all have been instructed to slap on a smile and all look jovial and friendly. But yeah, it's certainly not the story that we wanted to be talking about whenever we finished our World Cup.
I'm definitely in two minds about this, whether or not it's a big deal or not. It's hard to tell, right? Like, it's only a big deal if it continues on. If they've sorted it out and they both come out and say, yeah, look, we were, exactly to that point. We'd been living in each other's pockets for 2 months. We had enough of each other. We've talked it out and now we're grand. Or it's like, well, you overstepped your mark. You threw me under the bus. I can never forgive you type thing. Either of these outcomes and everything in between are on the table for us here.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, like, I didn't think the initial incident was that big a deal. Katie and Vera have said quite a few times that they've come to blows over, like, what the right thing is to do for the team, and they both have very, like, strong feelings on that, but also they respect each other, and, whenever they have these disagreements, it's just because they care about the team. I think that was all fine. Katie McCabe obviously doesn't have the power to tell Vera when to make substitutes, but sometimes players shout at managers and ask for certain things. That's not all that strange. It was the follow-up from Vera where she specifically name-dropped a player, saying that was a player that Katie wanted off, which puts a certain focus on it, rather than just laughing it off, giving a straight statement and being like, look, heat of the moment, it's fine, I don't care. That would have made it totally different. But then by her naming a player and then by Katie tweeting what she did, it just added fuel to this fire. So it could be a case that they come out in a couple of days and they say, look, he's the moment sort of stuff, it's all fine, water under the bridge. But I don't know, after I saw the Denise O'Sullivan tweet talking about distractions off the pitch as well, I was like, this seems like it's going a little bit deeper in the team, because the only distractions off the pitch that we had were kind of related to Vera. So what what is she trying to say?
Well, we did also have the Colombia thing, which might have been a distraction for her, where she was rushed to hospital and was crying in the hospital, worried about her participation in the World Cup. So that's potentially one of the things she was referring to there. However, I suspect that they're talking about being asked about Vera's time in America, which predates her time in Ireland, and on the eve of the World Cup, not being asked about the World Cup. So just need to, The other thing is, Denise O'Sullivan was very honest in her post-match assessment after the game. I played well, but I didn't play well in the first two games. And that's true. She has been disappointing in this World Cup.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I've said this several times when I've been on with you guys that, most of the time you come off watching a match and she is one of the players that you're picking out as having performed well. And she didn't those first two games. I mean, she still performed well, but not the levels of Denise O'Sullivan that we expect. And I think what you saw last night was that she was playing in a role that much more suited her, a role that she much preferred, a role that allowed her to get on the ball and in those attacking positions more. And she was delighted with herself when we were talking to her about it. She couldn't have been more happy. And we have been kind of speculating throughout the World Cup, like, maybe she's still carrying a bit of a knock from that Colombia game. Maybe she's just not confident or hasn't hit her stride, whatever it might be. But it seems like maybe she just wasn't playing in the right position to actually give herself the chance to be the Denise O'Sullivan that we all know and love when it comes to her football.
And had she not played in the same position across the qualifying campaign when she was a standout performer for us, though?
No, she had, but she was also able to get a lot higher forward more of the time. So she had been swapped into that more attacking role than the defensive midfield role, which she was for most of this tournament.
Just for context, Kathleen, just on that press conference, because I didn't see the press conference in its entirety, when everyone's saying, Vera Power's named the player, Sinead Farrelly. So what she said was everybody was doing so well. Was everybody wanting to take the best player off? Did she actually name check Sinead Farrelly, or is the assumption that she was talking about Sinead Farrelly?
No, Sinead Farrelly was name checked completely.
Okay. Was she asked?
No one was.
Was it a question? Who did Katie want taken off, or was it unprompted?
No, it was more. I think at some stage she was asked to elaborate a little bit more on what she meant whenever she said about the best player. No one wants to take off the best player. She was asked to elaborate on that a little bit more because everyone was like, "Well, who are you counting that as?" It could have been several players on the night, and then that's when she said it. Right. I mean, it was her choice to specifically say one player.
Yeah, but she's asked the question, she has to answer it, or she doesn't have to answer it. She could lie, but we do know she always answers questions.
Yeah, but I also don't think you say in a press conference in that way without putting one of your players, or you're selling out one of your players by going, she wanted the best player on the pitch off, because then you're questioning, well, why did she want the best player on the pitch off? Who is the best player on the pitch? Is that is there a tactical reasoning behind it? Maybe because that's one of the things that we've talked a lot about with Katie in this tournament is who's the person that's dropping in behind her whenever she goes up forward, and Sinead Farrelly was doing a lot of that last night, so maybe that was the reason why. But it was at best poorly worded and unthought out way of talking about it, I think.
How much responsibility is Katie McKay bear? So this is the other thing, is so captains obviously can say what the hell they want, right? And it's up to the manager to take on board. But equally, can they say what they want? I don't know. Get Sinead Farrelly off. No, I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, but see, that's the thing. We don't actually. So we were told someone we knew was sitting behind the goal, and what they heard Katie say was, we need fresh legs, and that's apparently what she was shouting at Vera consistently. Now, she might have said something about Farrelly, I don't know, but we don't know exactly what was said one way or the other, and that's a really hard thing. I'm just basing it off what I've been told and what I know. I think a player can shout on the bench and be like, we need fresh legs. I don't think that's that big of a deal. The manager's either going to be like, keep running, or fair enough, maybe we do. But I don't know if Katie's going to be standing on the side of the pitch when Sinead Farrelly is probably a couple of meters away from her screaming get her off as well. That doesn't really make sense in my mind considering how she was playing at the time.
Yeah, although I don't think Vera Pauw's making up that she meant Sinead Farrelly either. So maybe they'll have to come out and confirm this. I don't know. I wonder, Penny, for Sinead Farrelly's thoughts in all this. Not feeling particularly backed either by captain or manager.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Tony O'Donoghue on RTE asked Katie before this all happened, before the press conference happened, very innocent question about Sinead Farrelly playing the 90 minutes, and Katie said it was great. She was asked the same question by the newspaper journalist again before the press conference happened, gave similar answers about it being great and the fact that she's come through so much and it was brilliant to see her get the 90 minutes. So it's just kind of funny that in all of this, that was some of the questions she was asked when the storm was all brewing, about 10-15 minutes later, whenever the press conference started.
I was thinking during the game itself, Kathleen, I was like, I know Vera Pauw doesn't rush to make substitutions, but that this all happens and kicks off, if you want to use that phrase, on 70 minutes. I think it's the 83 minutes then when she takes Shiva and Larkin on for Lily Agg and Heather Payne. So it's even at that stage, 13 minutes later, it's not Farrelly who's down for consideration. I'm not saying that's stubbornness on Vera Pauw's behalf, but the subs certainly were slow to come.
Yeah, no, they were, and this is something that we talked about last night on the Koi Gig podcast, in the sense that we probably complained a lot against Canada that the substitutes came far too early, whereas it felt like yesterday they came far too late to actually make any sort of impact on the game. We probably did need that change. Not saying necessarily we need the fresh legs, but I think we did need a little bit of a change up around that 70-minute mark to give us a bit of a chance, because compared to the other two games where those last 10-15 minutes, there was a clear urgency from the team in terms of heading for goal and trying to get that win. We didn't really have that in the same way, and I feel like if we had made some of those changes a little bit earlier, we possibly would have built up that momentum. But again, I'm also not paid to be the Irish manager, so
I can understand why. I know people are almost splitting into two camps here. It's not quite at the level of Saipan, but I can almost understand where Vera Pauw is coming from, in that she is asked the question. She, as you say, she's going to answer the questions, because she generally does. And Katie, I agree with you. I think Katie has every right as captain to suggest something to a manager, maybe in a respectful way, go over and have a little one-on-one chat, suggest maybe Sinead Farrelly could come off if she feels she's getting tired. That's fair enough. But it's the social media stuff, and it's the carrying on of it, I think, that maybe players could stand up and maybe realise this is going to cause this to stretch even further.
Oh yeah, whatever she meant by the tweet, it just totally added petrol to this whole sort of situation. It probably would have been a talking point and a discussion point, but I don't know, would it have been the same level of, I was on the show last night with Gavin Cooney and Joe, and I think we spent about 40 minutes talking about it, but that wouldn't have happened probably without that tweet. So it definitely was rash thing to do in the moment, and I saw it and I was like, that's going to be deleted, so I'm going to take a screenshot of it just to make sure I'm not going mad for lack of sleep. But it was still up hours later, and I was like, well, does it also make it worse then if you do post it and it's too late and you delete it? Then you're kind of saying quite obviously that something has gone wrong. So yeah, it's just so annoying. It just feels like every step of this World Cup, we should be sitting here today, this morning, reflecting on our tournament, working out how well it went or it didn't go, thinking about Vera Pauw's contract in a footballing context, and instead it's once again we finished something momentous, we finished something historic, and there's some sort of rumbling on scandal or some sort of clarity that needs to come from the team, and it just seems like it's been so consistent over the last basically since we qualified in Scotland. There's just always been something else to talk about rather than the football.
And that's the point. This team just yesterday drew with Nigeria. Courtney Brosnan makes a Gordon Banks-esque save, which we should be talking about, and yet it's all hidden because of a petty, stupid little minor thing that I don't know. It feels like it didn't have to be public.
No, it definitely didn't, and I think that maybe with hindsight they'll be able to say that this is just all heat of the moment sort of stuff. They've had a conversation, it's all fine, but also it's partly fueled as well by the fact that Vera's contract situation is so up in the air, and as a result of that we're asking the players, well, do you want Vera to stay on, and then we're looking for their reactions to these sort of things. So it's just a jumble of stuff that's all coming to a head at once, and a lot of this could have been cleared up and dealt with a long time ago, and we would have less of an issue now, just after like the day after we finished our first ever World Cup.
Yeah, well, I guess the FAI are trying to play it both ways. They wanted to see what was going to happen at the World Cup, and if Vera had a sensational World Cup, then it would have been inevitable that she would have had to get a new contract. I think what's happened is that they haven't had conclusive evidence one way or another. We've had about a World Cup that you would expect in a group where there are two teams ranked as high above us as them, and it turned out Nigeria might have been the most exciting team in the group. So maybe we have underperformed, maybe we've overperformed. I guess we won't know until a new manager comes in and has the same group of players and either qualifies us playing a swashbuckling style of football where Denise O'Sullivan and Katie McCabe are free to rampage. You know, it'll be very interesting to see if anybody can find a way to make that happen. I think maybe there's this is the thing, like, I don't know, you guys might have a better sense of it being on the ground at home in Ireland, but I know, like, I'm getting loads of messages from people giving off about the fact that I'm trying to, like, kick Vera to the curb and how she's done great things, like qualifying us for the World Cup, and like we probably did perform to about the standard that we could in the matches that we played. And like, this is what I was trying to make clear last night, is that when I was saying I was uncertain about Vera, it wasn't so much the footballing issues, it was all the stuff around it that I was like, I think a clean slate is probably needed now going into the next tournament, if that's possible, and if there's someone there that can step into the role. But like, footballing wise, I think you can look at this tournament and you would be totally fair to give Vera a new contract for the next like campaign. I think she wants to go to the Euros, that's the general contract length. I don't think that would be totally out of the question or all that surprising, considering what she has done with this team. I don't think I'm jumping the gun by talking about this, because I'd be shocked at this stage if Vera Pauw signs a new contract personally. But David Kelly's writing in the Irish Independent today, Kathleen mentioning Tom Elm's name as someone who was very popular with the players, and it's just a passing paragraph, to be fair, in his piece, but popular with the players, I guess, will be continuity as well. Like, are there names being thrown around the mix already? I know they haven't even had their homecoming yet, so it is a bit premature, but like, would Tom Elms be someone that would be a popular choice? I think he would be a popular choice. I mean, we actually did a really good episode of the Koi Gig podcast with him back when we first started. Really, really interesting guy. Really, he worked with the under-16s team before he came into the Irish setup full time after we qualified for the World Cup, and one of those people who within the Irish football setup is very like focused on what they're doing on the pitch, but also what they're doing off it. So, you know, he has helped set up structures to make sure that girls, even if they're going through elite systems, are still getting like degrees or getting something that's going to sustain them for the rest of their career. Because as we know, in women's football in particular, there aren't a lot of pathways to go and make like major money. You're probably going to need a job at some stage of your life. He is very popular. I mean, he's the one, whenever a player is going on the pitch as substitute, he's the one down there giving them their kind of final words of advice. He's a name that I've suggested to a few people to just see reactions, and I haven't gotten all that much back from it. I've also heard Eileen Gleeson's name mentioned in there, and I know she is someone who for a long time has wanted to be in that coaching setup and is obviously now working within the FAI in her women's football role. There's also been some talk of getting someone in from England, but I feel like that would be a little bit more difficult because you would probably have to sell the project a little bit more. But I mean, it is an exciting time coming in. Just qualified first World Cup, Euros possibly down the line, a couple of our younger players going into the WSL. You know, I don't think it's an entirely horrendous project for someone to take on. Is it not a brilliant job? So why would you have to sell it?
Well, I just think in terms of some of the names that are being mentioned are probably like lower league WSL teams, possibly, or like upper level championship. And I don't know, like taking on an international job is a very specific thing, and some of the names are a little bit younger than I would have expected, and sometimes that can be a harder sell for a younger manager, I think, especially on the women's side of things. And there is also the side of it that like I don't know, would you want someone coming in who is going to commit completely to all levels of the game in Ireland so that we can make sure that we're, you know, growing everything from the ground up and not getting to a stage where we're kind of just like focused on one element of it and not having a track of people coming through the other side, I suppose.
That's definitely the FAI. I would agree with you 100%. The best thing for them to do is to find somebody who understands our system and is committed to growing it. Like, that's long term exactly what we should be doing. But surely it's a very attractive job. Or have events over the last couple of months soured potential candidates from the UK?
No, I don't think it's like that. The events over the last while has soured candidates from the UK. It's just from having general discussions. I get a sense that from some people they think it might be like something that you need to work a little bit harder on than maybe getting someone from Ireland who is more involved in the setup for a longer time. But I don't think it's necessarily like a bad convincing. It's like more we just have to explain our project. Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I guess then we don't want those people. We want someone to be enthusiastic about it. Like, you know.
Well, you don't having to explain a project doesn't necessarily mean that someone's not going to come in and be entirely enthusiastic and absolutely love the team. And I mean, like, Vera probably had to be convinced to come on board with the Irish squad initially. And when you look at her attitude when she first came in compared to like a couple of months and a couple of years down the line in terms of how much she fell in love with the team and fell in love with Ireland and the way she talked about it, it's not unusual to expect that from someone who's coming from the outside in, I suppose.
Fair enough. John Breen on Twitter says Risha Littlejohn was our player of the tournament. Who was our player of the tournament, do you think?
I don't think he's far off saying it could be Risha. I mean, it has to be Katie, like, realistically, in terms of the performances that she put in. But I think in terms of a player that you wouldn't have expected to perform to the standard she did, Risha 100% was incredible in every game she played. Particularly last night, I thought, when a lot of other players were missing passes, she was in there every single moment, clearing up for people, making really, really good tackles, really good awareness, really, really commanding in that midfield when we needed her to be, with Denise pushing up that little bit higher. So yeah, I've been really impressed with her during this tournament, and I have to hold my hands up because I was one of the people that was saying I didn't know how fit she was going to be for this tournament or how she was going to perform, considering the fact she didn't play for a club for the last couple of weeks of the season. But it seems the rest did her the world of good because she's had a really great tournament.
Courtney Brosnan
as well.
Sorry, go on, yeah.
Snap.
Touch wood.
From the other side of the world. Yeah, Courtney as well, definitely. I mean, player of the match last night. It was actually a really nice moment whenever it was announced. It was after the game ended, which is kind of unusual, and the team were having their huddle and Vera and Katie were giving their speeches, and it was announced over the PA, and everyone just kind of started jumping on top of Courtney and spraying her with water bottles. And I suppose we haven't had a lot of opportunities to get really excited and celebrate because we've only had that one goal. So it was nice that was kind of the final moment that the team had together on the pitch before leaving.
Is this your final dispatch?
It is my final dispatch. I was saying to Cameron before I came on, I'm glad you can't see my room currently because I am trying to put 3 weeks of clothes and some that severely need a wash after the 3 weeks in my bag, so I'm flying out tonight. So it's about, what time is it? 6 o'clock here, and I fly at 10 to 3 a.m. So a couple hours, yeah.
10 to 3 a.m. Oh my God. Not the nicest time to be flying. But at least you can sleep and then come back refreshed.
Yeah. Exactly. I arrive into Dublin, I think, at 8 a.m. Wednesday night, so it's not too bad. If anyone wants to organise me, a big homecoming, all my fans want to converge on the airport. Yeah. Well, there is a funny possibility that I am on the team plane, which would be kind of hilarious coming into Dublin. I think at that stage I would just be like hood up trying to get out.
No, this is the greatest reporting opportunity of all time. Pay for the Wi-Fi and live tweet the interactions. That's exactly what should happen.
Yeah, that has been the running joke. If you just imagine the feeling in the airplane, you'd be coming all the way down from business class to my economy seat, so you'd just be like, oh, can I just go through those curtains there? I just want to track something really quickly.
Kathleen, you were our player of the tournament, 100%. Great work, great World Cup, congratulations, well done. Safe home.
Thank you very much, guys.
Well done, Kathleen.
Well done. Thanks a million.
You say to someone is, like what's the Australian version? G'day mate. Is that hello or goodbye or both?
I think.
Is it like adios?
It's like ciao.
Ciao. Sorry. Yeah.
8:54 this morning here on OTB AM, and we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number if you want to get in touch, or of course you can always get us on youtube.com/off the ball. Lyndsey Davey is with us. Lyndsey, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning. How's it going, guys?
The Dublin Kerry rivalry has never been a rivalry in the women's football final before, and it's upon us. So was this what everybody expected at the start of the season, do you think?
Maybe not at the start of the season. I think with Dublin, I think the changes that they've had within the squad this year, I think even Mick said himself at the beginning of the year, if you said that they're going to be in an All-Ireland final, maybe not. But I think what's impressive has been just their performance throughout the season. I feel like every game they're kind of learning and getting better. And look, Kerry came off the back of an All-Ireland final last year, league champions this year, and for me, I think they're the team to beat. But look, Dublin Kerry in years gone by, they've always brought out the best of each other, especially in the men's. And I think we're in for an absolute cracker.
I think I remember you saying to us before, Lyndsey, talking about the transition and fears in maybe the last year or two that, if Mick stepped away or if a number of those senior players stepped away, that there would be a bit of a transition period, but that hasn't come to pass, and which I guess has been massively important that you have that experience.
Yeah, it's amazing. In fairness, we lost so many players over the last 2 years, and there was probably question marks whether Mick was going to stay on, and had he stepped away, you probably would have been fearful. But look, what he's after doing to the team this year, like I said, 14 new players in on the panel compared to this time last year. And I don't know, against Cork at the weekend, they just looked really strong, really fit, kept the scoreboard ticking over. I think tactically Mick got his matchup spot on. And they're very impressive.
Was it a jump up in performance against Cork as well? Shane Ronan, the Cork manager, even after the match was saying, I thought it was Dublin's best display of the season, and it wasn't the Dublin that they'd been analysing in the previous few weeks. So that, I guess, would hint that the performance levels from Dublin just went up a notch, I guess.
Yeah, like I said, I think they've been kind of just building on each performance. I suppose they had a very impressive win against Meath in the Leinster final, but for me, I think they left a lot of scores behind them. But even their shot to score ratio at the weekend, I think they scored 20 out of 27 scores from play. So shot to score ratio of 74% compared to, Cork, I think we're 5 out of 17, so 29 from play, So I think just all over the pitch, they really upped their performance. Abby Shields had 3 amazing saves. Jen Dunn was in flying form against Hannah Looney. They had a great battle in the middle of the park. And then up front, look, you have Carla Rowe, Hannah Tyrrell, have been their top scorers throughout the season, and they both walked away with 1-2. So I just think all over the pitch, everyone was really at the top of their performance. And I suppose there was a bit of statement of intent as well. The questions had been asked of them. You could even see with Jen Dunn's reaction after the game. She's kind of very emotional and speaking about how they have been kind of written off this year. So I think for them, it just goes to show how much it meant to them to get back to a final.
Incessant pressure on the Cork kick-out as well, Lyndsey. I think one of the key points in the game that really led to the Dublin win. Yeah,
absolutely. They really stepped up in the forward line, and I think that's somewhere where they'll definitely look to target against Kerry now in 2 weeks' time. But I think even the battle against Hannah Tyrrell and Roisin Phelan was really good. But yet when I think Hannah, I think Roisin kind of did really well to keep her quiet, but yes, Hannah got a great interception that led to their first goal, which was so important. So I suppose it's key moments like that that she's on the pitch for. And look, like I said, I think they really did put pressure on that Cork kick out.
Did you expect Dublin to be in the final when this season started? Mick Bowen certainly seemed to suggest after the match that last October, when he was thinking about this coming season, he did not expect to be in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, I suppose at the beginning of the year I probably would have had the same opinion as Mick. It was hard to know because I wasn't sure kind of what players that they were going to have. But even the first league win against Meath out in DCU, I was like, okay, there was a bit of reassurance going, there's definitely there's definitely still a lot of football in this team. And I think credit has to be given to their strength and conditioning coach, Sammy Dowling. He's done a lot of work with them throughout the year, and I think they all look so strong and so unbelievably fit. Like at one stage throughout the game, was this Niamh Crowley, who I think had a super game as well. Like she won the ball, was it just on the top of the D in Dublin side, carried the ball the whole way up the pitch. You could see Jen Dunn probably about 10 yards behind her, power and pass her, laid it off. And unfortunately it was wide, but that would have been a great score. But just I think the condition of them, they look great.
Lyndsey, let's talk a little bit about Kerry. For Kerry, obviously there was heartbreak in last year's All-Ireland final, and then they managed to overcome Meath already, who had hammered them last year and actually the previous year as well. So they're on what they would see as an upward curve, and a relatively comfortable semi-final for them too. So they'll be feeling pretty good about life heading into this final.
Yeah, 100%. Look, they've been very impressive this year as well, coming off the back of the heartache last year. I think they really had a statement of intent in the league, a very impressive win over Galway. I think though, for me though, at Kerry, come championship, I feel like their performance has dipped. Cork drew with them in the Munster, they beat them then in the Munster final. Obviously it was an absolute cracker of a game with Kerry and Dublin in the group stages. But even their last two games, against Meath and again against Mayo at the weekend, I feel their second half performances, they both dipped. Now, like against Meath 2 weeks ago, like in fairness, the conditions were horrendous. Kerry only got 1 point in the second half, and 6 points this half against Mayo at the weekend. So I think for them that's an area that they will look to go after. But look, Louise Murray-Hertic has just been in phenomenal form for them. 110 at the weekend, 4 from frees, and in even that group game that they had in Parnell Park against Dublin, I think she walked away with 1-6. So I kind of feel like it's kind of a matchup like the men. They're very similar teams in how they play, but I think if Dublin can minimise Louise's impact, it's kind of like David Clifford. I don't think you're going to negate him from the game completely, but I think if you can minimise Louise's impact in the game and try and stop some of this fireball into it, then I think Dublin have a very good chance of winning.
There was a nice little bit of needle in that game in Parnell Park. Yeah, so we should expect a little bit of needleless in a fortnight's time as well.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And look, that's what you want to see. I think in that game, after the final whistle, I think Dublin very unlucky to win. I think a ball dropped in over Abby's head, and look, it turned out to be the score that changed the game. But even towards the end, Dublin were really battling on. They finished really strong against Cork at the weekend. So I really think this is going to be the game that we want to see. When I walked away from Parnell Park that day, I was like, I really hope these are the two teams that we see in the final.
I guess chance to play for something as well, Lyndsey, is big on the Kerry side, because even their joint manager Darragh Long, after the match, making the point that Siofra O'Shea, their captain, has been a bit of an inspiration in the dressing room. Cruciate injury that ended her season, and it's, by the way, a second cruciate injury in recent years for Siofra as well, which is really tough to take, but clearly someone who still is a leader in the dressing room, so sometimes that can help a team having something to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's one of those injuries, cruciate, that you wouldn't wish on anyone. And poor Siofra, that's the second time round doing it. And look, especially when you're a captain as well, like she's going to be a leader with it in the camp. And it's just unfortunate for them. Like, she is a massive loss. But look, I suppose it is great that she is that still having a contribution in the dressing room. But for them, I think the last time Kerry won an All-Ireland was back in 93, if I'm right. So, for them, it'd be a massive achievement 30 years later doing it again. Look, it's funny because Louise Murray-Hertic, I have such respect for her. I think she's an unbelievable footballer, and I really would love to see her win an All-Ireland, but unfortunately just not at Dublin's expense this time round.
Yeah, because even she forgot the goal, didn't she, in Parnell Park in the game earlier in the year. Along with Louise Murray-Hertic, of course, she's a key figure, so a key miss as well for Kerry in that final.
Yeah, 100%. And look, even you can see the rest of the girls stepping up. Hannah O'Donoghue is going to be a big player for them. She walked away with 3 points at the weekend. Danielle O'Leary in full forward line as well. So in fairness, they still have a really strong full forward line. But Siofra is definitely going to be a massive loss for them.
I was really hoping that there would be a draw in the men's game, because it would have been a whole weekend of Dublin Kerry. the men's on the Saturday and then the women's on the Sunday? It could have been 2 extravaganzas.
Oh, it would have been amazing, wouldn't it? Now, Dean Rock might disagree with that now, considering his weekend's on the Friday. But geez, that would have really set it up for a cracking weekend, wouldn't it?
What did you make of the final?
Joe, it was really enjoyable. Again, I thought Dublin kind of got their matchup spot on. Simon did really well on Clifford. And I just love Dublin Kerry battles. I think they really do bring out the best of each other. And for me, like, I was very fortunate back in 2011. Brian Cullen was the captain back then when they beat them and he brought the Sam Maguire back. So for me, I always really look forward to Dublin Kerry battles. And look, the weekend was no different. It really came down to the wire. It's tough conditions in Croker. I think anytime Croker is kind of wet, it can really make things a bit difficult. But look, I was just probably delighted to see Dublin clip over a few points at the end to win it.
Yeah, fingers crossed the weather's a bit better for the women's final. A good chance for it to be another record crowd. It's been a while, obviously, since we've had those record crowds, but nothing gets those fans and the bandwagon rolling like Dublin Kerry.
Yeah, 100%. And look, the fact that Kerry are back in it, Dublin are back in it now after a 2-year break, and I really do hope that the crowd come out and support them. And wouldn't it be amazing if we were able to top the record attendance of 56,000 this year?
Lyndsey, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
No, thank you.
So Lyndsey Davey giving us some thoughts on Dublin Kerry Mark II for the women's final in, as I said, 10 days now. 5 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTB AM. Reminder, Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of Off the Ball. Braeburn Coffee coming to an Applegreen store near you. New locations popping up every month. Visit applegreenstores.com/Braeburn to find your nearest Braeburn coffee experience. After the break, Tommy Rooney crosses the T's and dots the I's on the definitive 2023 power rankings for the last time for Tommy Rooney.
OTB AM. The F1 pod on Off the Ball with Chicago Town Pizza. Formula One? Yeah, we go to town on it.
And Silverstone, to me, I went there and I thought, well, I'm not at a Formula One race. I'm at Glastonbury does Formula One. It's just the scale of the event, the scale of the entire estate. I don't know how many people they packed in over the weekend. They were talking about 480,000 or 430,000 over the 4 days.
The F1 pod on Off the Ball.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
Paddy, can you just describe what we're watching there in the middle of the field? You're going to start crying, aren't you?
Yeah. Fitzy, Macker and Dino out in the middle of the pitch. Oh man, big Fitzsimons there, lads. Jesus Christ, Clifford is an animal and he's going to have unbelievable days again. Fitzy out there, look, the 3 boys, and we don't know what the plans are for anyone here. That's way for another day, but all season within Dublin, you just got a sense that the boys are going to make this happen, and you might see all these guys again. We don't know that. They don't know anyone anything. Look at the guys who were massive. Mannion coming back today, outstanding 5 points. Cluxton clipping 2 frees. Kerry coming after on the kickouts. He was immaculate again. And Fitzy on Clifford. You didn't fancy it, Jimmy, and to be fair, not many people did, but I know that man. I've known that man for nearly 20 years. I've played him for about 15. He just has a way about him. He was just not going to lose that battle hands down. And some of the moments he puts Clifford under pressure. But I'm looking at those 3 guys in the middle of the pitch. Who knows if we'll see them all again. But I tell you what, even if we don't, they don't owe anyone anything. But what a special day. And Kerry are a brilliant team. They were great champions. But I just got the feeling all year the Dubs are going to make this happen. And thank God they've done it in the end.
Some of these critics, these pundits.
Generally speaking, I'd be a fan of Off the Ball. Exactly, and like Tommy knows his football, obviously I listen to football pod the odd time.
And I was looking at the power rankings and I thought that Jesus Owen must still be feeling the effects of these mushrooms.
But they just miss you like, you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
Tommy, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. Morning, Shane.
Morning, man.
How are we?
We're good. How are you?
Very good.
That clip of Tommy making Paddy Andrews cry. You're going to cry, aren't you? It was like the X Factor sob stories. Tommy just go on and cry.
I shouldn't have said it, because when I said it, I realised there was already a tear rolling down his cheeks. So
you were just thinking of the views.
Yeah, look, it
was great to actually record there. I know it was immediately after full time. There was a lot of emotion. Very hard to process a game straight away. So a lot of that podcast on Sunday is emotion and tributes to Cluxton and McCarthy and Fitzsimons, and it was great. It was great to see that as well. That, you know, we all get caught up in the emotion of it, but I think it's different when it's your teammates or your brothers or your sisters, as you know, players would feel when they're looking out there the big days.
The hand on the shoulder from James O'Donoghue as well.
Yeah.
Classy touch from James. He's a classic guy. Magnanimous in defeat. He held up his hands. He got 1 or 2 calls wrong this year.
Desperation.
But hey, lads, it's such fine lines. My God.
Well, it is such fine lines, but it's not fine lines that I like that. I didn't predict that Dublin were going to be the number one about 5 months ago, Tommy. Not such fine lines.
Hands up. Congratulations, Ger.
Not too late now.
Yeah.
Too late now. You got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend. You just want to be on the side that's winning. That's what Roy Keane. That's what Roy Keane was listening to in Saipan, by the way. A little bit of Positively 4th Street from Bob Dylan.
Okay.
There were efforts, weren't there, to get Owen Sheehan on with us this morning, to have a formal, I guess, handover, post-mortem on Kerry, but
I'll ring him here.
Owen's still on the... You're going to ring him?
He's unavailable.
No.
Unavailable for selection. Come here. It was Fitzsimons, Rock, and who was on the pitch there?
McCarthy.
I only heard Ashling's interview with Dean Rock afterwards, just how close Rock and McCarthy are. Rock was talking about he really did not want a replay. I better kick this, because if there's a replay, my wedding's got to be scotched. His wedding is the week after next, I think, and James McCarthy's going to be his best man. That's how close they are. But then, so I was just looking back, because at the end of Dean Rock, we kind of, he hasn't been in the team this year, but his career absolutely ludicrous, like absolutely sensational. So he won. Where's I've just lost it here. He started his first league match for Dublin in 2015, after which he participated in 63 consecutive league and championship games.
Yeah, that's
insanity.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Yeah.
And so there's going to be a sluicing out of the system. Somebody said to me, in all seriousness, in the pub afterwards on Sunday night, who's a massive, who knows everything about Dublin football, those won't even win Leinster next year. I was like, what? No. Seriously, straight-faced, full celebration. They're not even going to win Leinster next year. This is the end.
I who knows what's going to happen in the off-season? Like, who could have predicted what happened this year? Like, who could have predicted Mannion and McCaffrey coming back in October? Was it Gilroy in mid-March, Cluxton in late March? It was hard to believe what was going on, and it was such a mental, manic season that it was difficult to process it and to say they're going to do what they're going to do. Like, they didn't just add a little bit extra to the team. Like, that entire All-Ireland was won by Cluxton, Mannion, McCaffrey's impact off the bench, Colin Beskell, who's come back to the panel this year. Like, his second half. Ger, why would any of them leave? Now, it's such a personal decision. Like, there could be any amount of reasons for going. They've done everything. But, like, James McCarthy was going around flaking fellas. That man could do that for another 5 years. Stephen Cluxton's 42. He was kicking 45s and frees from behind. Do you know, like, he got 23 out of 23 kickouts away. 100% accuracy.
Yeah.
Why would he go? Michael Fitzsimons did a man-marking job in David Clifford and did exceptionally well. He had a very good season all year long. Like, there's no reason that any of them have to go. We don't know what's going to happen in the off-season. We have no idea what's going to happen to the Dubs. But Jack McCaffrey, I felt, said it afterwards in his post-match interview at the banquet with Joanne Cantwell. He said, don't make a mistake here. Like, we didn't come back to add another couple of medals to the pockets of lads that were full of them already. We came back here to show the younger lads how to win in All-Ireland. And by God, have we seen just how good those lads are. And he said the next boys coming through are even better than what we were.
That's the point.
It's not true, though. They're not better.
No, but you're making the point.
I hope not.
They're not better. If they are better, then we're splitting Dublin in two.
Well,
three. If
they lose Rock, he wasn't playing. If they lose Cluxton, Comerford comes back in. granted, McCarthy would be, and if someone like Brian Fenton were to leave, or one of those lads who are on the level below the 30 kind of.
Well, there's the 29, 30-year-olds who are that Fenton, Davy Byrne, that era. There's talk that many of them are considering taking a year out at least. And look, I don't know. I mean, maybe they are, and you can totally understand it. Maybe they do what Brian Howard did, and they travel until January, and they come back, and that's what everybody go now.
Get it done.
Yeah, even Howard said with you guys yesterday morning how surprised he was when he got back at the standards that he walked into. Now, it's difficult to process it, but what does that say about the Dublin of the last 2 years? You know, and I heard Brian Fenton speaking afterwards as well, and the hurt that they felt over those 2 years of falling short. They lost by a point in 2 All-Ireland semi-finals. The standards couldn't have been that low. No, it could not have been that. They weren't that far away, but it was just obvious that we weren't watching the Dublin that we saw in. Say that felt like 15 yesterday. That All-Ireland final win. They did the right things. They did just enough, and they pulled away going down the stretch. It was a very, very impressive performance from Dublin. I felt like they really went for it. I actually felt in 2019 watching that All-Ireland final, the first one, that history seemed to impinge them a little bit. There was a very young Kerry side in that 2019 All-Ireland final. Cooper was sent off early. Kerry should have won that day. Kerry should have held on that day. And it felt like the weight of that 5 in a row was on that Dublin squad. They were chasing history again yesterday. It was such a motivating factor for so many of those players to see James McCarthy, Mick Fitzsimons and Stephen Cluxon walk up and collect their 9th All-Ireland medal. Do not underestimate how much that hurts Kerry as well. That their 8 All-Ireland winner club has been surpassed. Now in 2020 they were taking level, and now at the weekend there's a new club of 9 All-Ireland winners. So history was there again this weekend. It was unbelievable stuff. It was an unbelievable performance.
Yeah, there was a number of that Dublin team that maybe, because if you'd said before the game Conor Callaghan would be held scoreless, a couple of them would have off days, you're thinking, all right, this is Kerry's to take. But there's just something about that last 5 minutes of a game, because we often talked about the Dublin third quarter, but both Monaghan and Kerry nullified to a degree that Dublin third quarter in the semi-final and final, and yet towards the very end of the game the experience came back in. Why are you smirking there, Ger?
I'm reading Cavan O'Brien's tweet from the other day. The whole country wanted Dublin to lose today, which makes it just much better. Don't be jealous just because when you open Just Eat, all you see is your local Maxall Garage deli bleeding culchies.
Nothing wrong with the Maxall Garages.
Yeah.
It's great to see them winning, Tommy, isn't it? As a Meath man and Kildare man beside me here as well, you must be both absolutely delighted.
I know, look, yesterday a Kerry Dublin All-Ireland final, all you want is a great game. Kerry, let's not make any bones about it. Kerry have won 38 All-Ireland. You can't be as a neutral, as a neutral yesterday, I just wanted to see a great game.
We didn't get it, Tommy, did we?
It wasn't great, but in the circumstances and with the rain, the tension, the noise.
Yeah.
Shane, were you in there yesterday?
No, I was watching from home, and you got that sense on TV as well. It was tense, but it wasn't a great game.
Shane, the noise. Ger, I don't know what, a Dublin Kerry All-Ireland final, the noise yesterday was something else.
It was. And
it was something else.
So one of the things I was thinking about afterwards was that there were no minor fans there from non-competing counties. Maybe there have been some times where the minor and the senior game are exactly the same under the old provincial system, and so that might have happened before, but everybody was there to see just that game, and there was certainly periods in the second half where it was like the place is shaking,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was looking, and I obviously it wasn't a great game, a classic, but just that tension, the turnovers, the manic. There was one phase of play, I think the Dublin get a score from it, where McCarthy's going through and he gets turned over. Then they forced the turnover back in the Kerry defence. But then Kerry went it back and they go on attack. And I actually think they missed the chance, or I think it maybe led to the Clifford Fitzsimons free that gets overturned, which leads to a Paul Mannion equaliser at the far end. It was just absolutely insane. It wasn't that, phases of play where, you keep the ball for 3 minutes and be conservative and you hold it and you go slow. It was teams losing the ball, taking chances and turning over. I think the one big difference yesterday, Kerry's quick transition. Don't know how I said it there. Kerry's quick transition can come from kicking the football, and they didn't really kick it yesterday. I think they rattled themselves once or twice. Tom Sullivan played the ball to Paul Ganey and it skidded over the end line. But when the Dubs moved it, they moved it through the hands, and they moved so fast through the hands. And I don't think Kerry were doing that as well as Dublin did, and that they suffered massively from that. Because anytime David Clifford shot, it felt like he was shooting from a very difficult angle or under pressure. And one of the things I think he might learn as well, especially against Dublin, when he misses, it's a score. And the noise when he missed, and even if he showed a little bit of frustration, the noise from the Dublin fans, they were giving it. And I think that just sucked the energy out a little bit. So, I don't know, there was one stage, I'll have to watch it back, but Killian Spillane had kicked a brilliant point, and I feel Spillane had another possession. And Spillane should have spun his man. Spillane is just off the bench. He should have backed himself. He should have went for it.
Yeah.
And he slipped it to Clifford under pressure in the rain, and it just spills out of his hands. Like, there were just moments like that where I just think later on, a Clifford point is worth 2 there, and I know he probably knew that himself.
And that Spillane point is on 66 minutes, and that was Kerry's first point in 15. So like that period from 51 minutes to 66, Kerry don't score until Spillane pops it over.
So their 3-point lead goes to 0.
Yeah,
Dublin got a 7-2. Like Dublin had scored him 7-2 from the 15 minute. It's absolutely, and the amount of influence Jack McCaffrey had on that.
Yeah,
like when you do watch it back, the amount of influence, like Paddy Clifford, I think he had scored the second of his 3rd points when McCaffrey's brought in. Clifford scores another, but then it's a Jack McCaffrey show after that. He's involved in everything. It's just.
So I half think from listening to him that he's not going to stop McCaffrey. That it seemed like he was just having the crack and enjoying it. In a way, do you remember he spoke before about after the drawing game feeling sickened that he had to play again. He'd had it in his head that the whole season was over, and that he couldn't face that, and that was real. But
speaking to Bernard Brogan about that, that was powerful stuff. Talking about the feeling in his stomach at the end of the drawing game, thinking,
can't do this again.
All again.
Yeah. Whereas somebody said he was off in Africa and came back and he was totally rejuvenated, and so I don't know. I mean, I think. If he was to stay and if Mannion was to stay, well then all of a sudden, I mean, as we know, that's a different ball game, and that might convince a few more of them to.
I genuinely don't think there's any point speculating over who's going to stay and who's going to go. I think
we have a long winter ahead of us. What are you talking about?
Especially these couple of days, I think.
You used to produce this show, for God's sake.
I think they're totally elated at the moment, right? And I don't think anyone's walking away this week. But when, Monday Club enters week 2 and they're still going next Monday, and they're looking at the club championship at the weekend, and they're thinking about the jobs they have to go back to and the lives that they have to live, and I just think then they'll start thinking about it in a week or 2. I don't think anyone's thinking about it. I think they're all staying now. They're all going for 10 now.
Well, Jack,
which is scary.
Wasn't someone saying Jack McCaffrey's working in a hospital in Galway, so obviously he's travelling back and forth across the country for trainings? I don't know, or people in Clontarf won't want to hear me saying this, but maybe clubs in Galway might be perking their ears up and trying to do a Shane Walsh job in this. But like those players, like that commitment and that work coming across the country for training, like that does take its toll. I'm not saying Jack's going to step aside, but like
that's only 2 hours in the road these days, and it's fine.
I'd never judge somebody for switching clubs because of travel, so that's my body. Let's keep going.
Wow,
it's not easy. 500 kilometre round trips.
It's not easy being me. You try.
One life, 2 clubs.
You try having a house in Mayo and one in Brussels and one in Dublin. You try it sometime.
That's the late, isn't it?
So there's no changes to anything, is there?
No, there is. Yeah.
Okay. We go through this.
We don't have to do 33 to I don't want to relitigate Monaghan with Shane here, so let's just go straight to.
If you lose to the eventual winners, do you not go up?
Team 33 for what it's worth. So our final page for the final time this year: Tyrone are 8, Galway are 7, Armagh are 6, Monaghan are 5, Mayo are 4, Derry are 3, Kerry are 2, and Dublin are 1.
Yeah.
Swap the top 2 there. Did you notice that?
That's the only change.
All year Kerry sitting high in Tommy's power rankings. Isn't that right?
No. Galway spent 2 weeks in first.
Yeah. Surprised you don't.
Dublin has spent, I think, I'll have to go through it. I think it's something like 10 out of 16 weeks in second or something like that. Like they've been second for a while.
You were the fancy Dans. You were the fancy Dans, Tommy. You were the newspaper on the wall in the Dublin dressing room, or like that. Those.
I don't think so. I don't think so. There could have been a quote from James Donoghue hanging up there, but I don't think it was the power rankings, to be honest. Yeah, like Jerry, you called it. I think it was back in April you called it, and I think it's easy to call it when you're sitting where you are.
Whoa! What?
But when you've got
it's easy to be correct, is it? You were incorrect.
When you've got all the pie charts and the stats on the walls here around me, and you're trying to figure out the algorithm. Kerry were All-Ireland champions, and they were still All-Ireland champions.
Paralysis by analysis. That's what
Dean Rock got free in the 76th minute and went right down to the wire. So we had a good go of it with the power rankings this year. I would say we had a good go of it.
You tried your best. You got a few things wrong, certainly.
I think we had a good season, lads. I think we had plenty of good discussions, good conversations. And, I was hoping Owen Sheehan would be here for the official handover, but best of luck with that fella next year, because I had 5 years trying to produce him, and that was a bloody disaster. So.
He's both approach it in very different ways as well. Like the methods are completely different.
Yeah, Owen makes it very personal.
Owen's messages have basically dried up over the last 24 hours. I had no idea what part. We were actually getting more dispatches when he was in deepest, darkest Peru than we've got since he's been back in Kerry.
Yeah, well, I was actually with him. I know you experienced the match with him on Sunday. I experienced the post-match debrief, and the Shanes are a great clan. They're all fairly upbeat. They were like, look at, we feel like we had our chances and we didn't take them, so fair play to the Dubs, and they were all in good spirits. I haven't heard from him since, so I don't know whether the Monday Blues kicked in the next day and they started realising the opportunity that they let slip, just like 2019.
There was a definite I was down in the Sheehan house in Farnfore, or the Fire East, last week, and lovely breakfast, lovely spread put up by Carmel, and like the confidence in the house. There was an air of confidence. One of the Kerry jersey out, they have a big mosaic on the wall of the I guess conservatory or part of the kitchen, and Jerry, you're on it, I'm on it.
Oh really?
There's a photo of yourself and Owen chatting to the family on air last year, and there's a photo of myself in my Galway jersey with Owen in his Kerry jersey before the All-Ireland last year, and it's emotional. It's all the league games. It's the family. There's basically a shrine to Kerry football in the house. Like,
hold on a second. They named their only daughter Kerry.
Yeah.
So I think that says it all. No, look, if you're a Kerry person, how could you not be like? David Clifford said after the game in the post-match banquet, and I saw some Dublin people take offence to this, and I didn't really read into it. He said, "Thanks for all the support this year. We're sorry for not getting the job done. Sorry to the management. Sorry to Jack. We let you down. Hopefully next year we can right those wrongs." They feel like they have an official birthright to winning All-Irelands, and they bloody well do. They're always in the mix. There are peaks and troughs, but Kerry are always in the mix. And somebody said it yesterday, when Dublin aren't winning All-Irelands, that's when we should be asking questions. They have the biggest population. They have the deepest pockets. They should be there nearly every year. It's every other county that are trying to get there, that are trying to break up those two. 31 and 38. That's what, 69, is it? It's a lot of All-Ireland titles.
Nice.
Over the last 140-ish years, is it? My maths are kind of falling short here. It's a lot of All-Ireland titles.
Oh, where's Owen when you need him? He would have got that.
Yeah.
I got it.
So
I got it too.
Who is going to stop next year? I don't think all the Dubs are coming back. I think, while you're saying no point speculating, certainly there was a last dance bang off a lot of this, and I suspect that when the bodies are sore and the mind clears in 2 weeks' time, they'll be like, my hole is sickened, I can't do this again, I'm finished. I've literally climbed every single mountain that history has built for us. There are no more mountains. There are no more mountains. Henry Shefflin is 10. I'm sorry, I don't actually care. Like, fair play to him, that's incredible. My 9 are amazing, and all the 8s.
Yeah, and Rena Buckley has 11, so there's always one more to go.
Then there's a bunch of 8s. Like, does Rena Buckley not have 20 between the?
Oh, she could actually have way more. Yeah, she's way more. Football titles. She's 11.
So look, I don't know. I'd be very surprised, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised if there's like a new management team who come in with and there are a new core of young Dubs who are coming through. and then it's John Small and Paddy Small's team and Collie Pascal and who knows who's left at the end of that. But that's why I think
it was 18.
18, sorry, it's close. I think that's why stopping Kerry this year was hugely important, because Kerry could easily just have got on a roll, and all of a sudden, like, if Kerry had won this and all the Dubs were retiring next year, you'd be like, ooh, Kerry have gone back to back.
Michael Foley said it in his Sunday, or in his RT montage at the end of the game. This wasn't about stopping 2 in a row for Kerry. This was about stopping 3 in a row in 2024. Like, that was part of it. Like, you know, Kerry went 2 All-Irelands, David Clifford went 2. Who's stopping them next year?
Nobody.
Like, as you said, the lads who came back, the Dubs, like, imagine the deflation they feel after putting everything into it, getting everything back on track, all the energy, all the emotion, all the secrecy to come back, you know? And then they fall short at the last minute because of David Clifford scores a wonder score from the Cusick and a wonder score from the Hogan. Like, that easily could have happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Such fine lines. Imagine Clifford rattled the back of the net with that chance when he went for goal. Do you know, like, imagine Gavin White, instead of going backwards, used the unbelievable pace he had to burst through. There must have been something wrong with him. There must have been something wrong with Gavin White, because even his chase back afterwards, maybe it just dawned on him when he was looking at the hill that there was a goal happening here. But, like, even his chase back isn't 100%. You know, like...
But even then, I'm not
imagine Paul Murphy slid and missed the ball and Shane Ryan saved it. Such fine lines.
Or it goes wide. It could easily have gone wide.
Yeah. Such fine lines. And the Dubs grabbed that game by the throat towards the end, and they strangled the life out of it, as they have done in 16 and 17 to Mayo, as they have done so many times throughout the last couple of years. They're an unbelievable team, and as you said, they've climbed every mountain they possibly can. Please just go away now.
Yeah, retire. Come here. Who's actually next?
Well,
in your pecking order, I don't think Mayo are there.
Don't laugh.
To be honest,
don't laugh at me. But like, Pádraig Joyce, the continuity of staying on. Like, is Cian O'Neill going to stay? You had a very good conversation with Cian O'Neill. It was great to hear it the last day. If they can keep their team together, if they can continue, there are footballers in Galway. There's plenty more coming through. They're building a group there. They have depth. It all slipped away so quickly this year against Armagh in the last couple of minutes. They ended up drawing Mayo in the pot, and Mayo caught them in Salt Hill. But Sean Kelly and Damien Comer injured. They're two best footballers not right, and Mayo bet them.
Silk not playing as well.
Silk wasn't there. Silk was never going to be back this year. But there's Sean McCairns, Kieran Malloy. There's so many good footballers in Galway. And do you know what? The likes of David Clifford and Shane Walsh and Conor Glass need a bloody break. They're probably not going to get it for a while. I hope their clubs don't do well this year. Those lads look spent towards the end of the All-Ireland Championship. Sean Kelly too. They had such long years last year, and they were going into a chaotic, crazy championship. I hope a lot of these players come back refreshed next February or March, and we get to see them properly in action, because I do think Galway are going to be the mix. I do think Derry, who's going to be the new manager? Derry, is Kieran Meena going to stay in there? Is somebody new going to come in? Shane, your good friend Malachy O'Rourke, is he going to be hanging around Derry? I don't know what's going to happen there. Do you know, is there a chance that Derry come in and they're actually bring through some of these under 20s and minors and they freshen up what they've got? Because Derry have hit a level that is so impressive. I do think that they can go another level or two. So I think Derry could be in the mix. They could definitely do with a fresh start there. Galway, Derry, Kerry. What's going to happen in Mayo?
Kerry are favourites, right?
What's going to happen in Mayo? It's going to be interesting.
As we sit here today.
And let's not forget the fifth ranked team in the power rankings, Monaghan. Where are they going to be next year, Shane? Tell me, where are Monaghan going to be next year?
Well, if they're in the final, they'll be third in the power rankings. That's all I can tell you.
No, where are Monaghan going to be next year?
I think Vinnie Corey's first year as we move on. We'll ask Conor McManus tomorrow in studio. Do you know?
Oh, brilliant. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Fantastic.
That'll be good. But Meath, of course, Talton Cup champions next year. Is that we had the Galway 98 team getting the centenary celebration, or not centenary, but the commemorations of
greatest day ever
years.
for Kildare fans in Croker on Sunday. Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Dublin winning again, hooray. Oh, 98, magic, hey.
Before next year's final, that's 1999, 25 years on, Meath. So we've got the great Meath team coming on before next year's final. Looking forward to that, Tommy.
Do you know what that says to me, Shane? 25 years is a bloody long time for a county like Meath to leave All-Ireland's go. Like, for what they had built for those 20 years. So hopefully
isn't it
they get a bounce.
Isn't it Ashburn GAA Club's fault?
I'm not talking about that.
All right.
What's that about?
that, because I will not be allowed back into the County of Meath if I say what I feel. I cannot say what I feel. I cannot
hear. Go on. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Go on. If I speak,
I'm
no.
trouble. Go on. Give me a hint of what you're talking about.
Celebrate it, but like, just, I don't know, do it somewhere else. Like, come on. There was word that they didn't even show the Tailteann Cup final in the clubhouse. I don't know. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. But if Meath can take, and Cavan and Westmeath did it in the All-Ireland series. Cavan didn't get the bounce. Meath need to get the bounce, because there are fantastic young footballers coming through in Meath, and they need to continue that upward curve. And they would have got confidence from that performance in Croke Park. They've taken so many whoopings there in big days. So hopefully it is a winter in Meath where they're building on what they have. And there'll be loads of counties like that. Loads of them.
Ashburn GAA club was taken over by the locals, who are all wearing their Dublin jerseys supporting the Dubs.
Oh, at the weekend?
Yeah. Oh. And there was a rumour, we have yet to stack it up, that perhaps they didn't show the Tailteann Cup final in the clubhouse. Maybe it was shown, but maybe it wasn't under supported. I don't know. But certainly this is the Dublification of South Meath and North Kildare continues apace.
Jesus, we will approach Ashburn GAA, of course, for comment.
We will.
We have to.
Yeah.
You should. Yeah, go for it.
Tommy, you came.
Credit union on too when you're at it.
You came, you saw, you conquered certainly Monaghan anyway.
We had a bit of crack, lads, to be fair.
It was very enjoyable.
We had good fun, and thanks to everybody who engaged and abused me all year long. And there was plenty of people who I think enjoyed the conversations we had. Got a great shout out in the Indo last week too.
Well, you allow the rest of us to get abuse as well, Tommy, because anytime any of us are out and about, we get abuse for the power rankings, even though we have absolutely no say over it. It's your decisions allow us to get abuse.
That's fair, Shane.
So thank you.
I apologise for that. Now you have poured petrol on the fire a couple of times this year.
I have. Well, you could have fixed it. You know how, but sure.
No fixing.
I'm looking forward to normal service being resumed next year and the power rankings.
I know you are. Yeah. And then, hey, he deserves it. See you, lads. Thank you.
Cheers, Tommy.
See you, boys. Bye.
Tommy Rooney there, who's dead to us now. It's 9:36.
Never to be seen again.
Yeah. Right. Don't miss all the action in Rugby Daily today in your OTB podcast network, bringing you everything you need to know about rugby. Get your favourite local restaurants delivered to your door with Deliveroo. Just open up the app, browse some great offers, take your pick, and they'll take care of the rest. Deliveroo, food, we get it. On Wednesday's show, Shane has already teased this. Monaghan star Conor McManus will reflect on his season. We look ahead to Ireland's World Cup warm-up against Italy. The Rugby World Cup, Football World Cup over, Rugby World Cup about to begin. Plenty more besides. Right now, Colin Boyle and Darren O'Sullivan breaking down the All-Ireland final with Joe Malloy. Have a top Tuesday.
Gaelic football on Off the Ball
with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
Now then, you're welcome along. We're talking GAA. So as last dances go, that was pretty good. Our dynamic duo are here. Darren O'Sullivan, hello.
How are you doing, Joe?
And Colin Boyle with us as ever. Hello, Colin.
Joe, how are things?
Yeah, very good. So I don't know, were you both at the game or watching at home? I watched on the TV and I really enjoyed it. I thought it had this kind of ferocious, constant intensity. I spoke to someone who was at the game and he was terribly disappointed, thought it was like dull, pedestrian, the first half in particular. So in the main column, did we get a good All-Ireland football final?
I think we did, Joe, and I'll be hearing. I wasn't at the game, so I'll be interested to hear what Darren thinks from being there. Was the quality brilliant? No, it wasn't. I don't think we were expecting like it was going to be like it was in 2019. But just the fact that, especially in the first half, there was so many turnovers. It was the most chaotic, I would say, first 10 or 15 minutes of an All-Ireland final that I can actually remember. There was so many turnovers. There was hardly any free given by David Goff. I think Ian Fitzmaurice commentary, it took him about 7 or 8 minutes to actually give the matchups, and I think that just shows a fella of his football brain sitting in the best seat of the house. Even he couldn't figure out what was happening because it was literally turnover after turnover up and down the pitch. But I found it exciting because every time there was a turnover, there was a buzz in the crowd, and I think eventually it kind of settled down after that. I think the second half, quality-wise, was actually better. But I think overall, I actually really enjoyed the game, and I can see people's arguments in it that yes, the quality was on the low side for what we expect between these two. But I was happy enough with it.
Yeah. Darren, well, how many drinks had you had pre-game, I suppose we need to know before you give us your answer?
Too many pre-game and way too many post-game. But yeah, like it was one of them finals. Like Colin said, the standard it was quite poor. There was a lot of mistakes, and it was funny. I went into the bathrooms after the game, and the usual talk at the urinals was, actually, we've all played the game. The mistakes they were making were outrageous. And I was looking at your man, I was there going, I don't know how many times you've played out in that pitch in the rain, and the intensity. The intensity was off the walls. The tackling, like you could feel some of them, like it was bone crunching. Now look, the quality, I think, and Colin will say the same, the quality is never as good in Croke Park when there's rain. And it sounds stupid because it rains in Ireland so often, but that pitch is different, and you could see with fellas there, the way Kerry were getting bodies back, Dublin were getting bodies back, and fellas were second guessing themselves, and then they were getting caught in contact. Like, it was amazing to see how often Kerry and Dublin both went into contact when the day was made for avoiding it at all costs. But the standard wasn't great, but it was tense and it was gripping. I was actually sitting beside Tom Morrissey from Limerick for the game, like, and it was actually interesting to see, like, he enjoyed it, but just the different tactical things that were going on. Like Colin said, he were 10 or 15 minutes into the game going, who is marking who? Who's playing where? But at times it was slow, but I just think when the conditions are like that, it's always going to be that way.
Yeah. Like, a game almost can take on a certain rhythm, Colin, and when there were so many turnovers, I suppose that allowed you be a touch more cavalier in possession. It wasn't like you were playing Derry or Roscommon and you knew if you lost the ball you'd be 5 or 6 minutes without it. Like, there was probably this sense of we're just getting a little bit lost in the to-ing and fro-ing of it here.
Yeah, there was a bit of that, but in fairness, like when there was a turnover, and especially Dublin, they were trying to counteract at real pace, and we saw that a couple of times with Mannion kicked the super score. But there was a couple of times before that where Lee Gannon wins the ball back and he just lets it in from the halfway line, and I think Ty Morley makes an interception. So, you know, there was good phases of play, but I think it's important to recognise good defensive play as well, and you know that can make it an exciting game. And I mentioned Morley there. I think he's a typical example. Like, for a fella for the last 2 years, Joe, who's played pretty much as a sweeper role where you don't mark anyone, to all of a sudden in an Ireland final go in and go on a 70-minute duel with one of the best players in the country in Conor Callan. And I think some of the one-on-one defending in the whole game yesterday, but from him in particular, like that one in the first half where O'Callaghan wins the ball and he's 14 yards out from goal, and as a defender, when O'Callaghan's lining you up, you know there's danger all over this. He's trying to throw the sidestep and go for goal, but in fairness to Morley, his footwork is unbelievable, shows on the sideline and forces the mistake. And Darren mentioned it there, like we talked a couple of weeks ago, Joe, like what is a tackle in Gaelic football? Yeah. And I think you saw it yesterday. A lot of it was just making contact with the player and actually forcing the mistake, forcing him to make the error. And obviously the conditions yesterday were absolutely ideal for that. And it made to this frantic, you know, game where there was just turnover after turnover. Like I said, I actually enjoyed that.
Yeah, I like, we're very quick, Darren, to celebrate the forwards. I think that is a final where you can say you want to see some really good defending allied by the conditions. Generally, a lot of defenders got on top. That's not the end of the world. I mean, they should be saluted as well.
Oh yeah, look, like it was a day for cornerbacks, but no, it was, and like every turnover was greeted with this eruption of noise. And Colin hit the nail on the head. I think Dublin, they transitioned into attack so much quicker than Kerry. I think that's where Kerry probably will have their biggest regrets. When they got their turnovers, we just didn't inject any pace into our attack. We were a bit slower going forward with it, and like Colin mentioned, Lee Gannon just drove one in at one stage. We never really did that. We were cautious looking at times. It was a case of we worked hard to get it back here, don't give it back straight away, we'll build our way up. And as it happened a few times, we'd get up to around the 45-50 yard mark and we went lateral. Next thing, there was no one free, and like Colin saying, you make contact, players will make a mistake in them conditions, and then it was a turnover. But like that, it was just tense, it was gripping. We talked last week, Kerry, we thought they needed to go up by 4 or 5. They could never get to that 4 points. They could never get to 2 scores. They get to 3 and they'd have to work really hard to get 3 points up. And then very quickly Dublin would have it back level. I think that was draining on the energy of Kerry, maybe a bit demoralising as well at times.
Yeah. What was your sense, Colin, at half time as to who was happier? Kerry went in obviously point ahead, having probably not had the best of it. Paul Gainey had scored the goal, Clugston had kicked the 2 frees, Mannion and Seán O'Shea had done most of the heavy lifting on the scoreboard, lots of turnovers. I think the conversion rate at half-time was Kerry 45%, Dublin 50%, and certainly in good weather anyway, they'd both be hoping to hit 70% on a good day. So in the dressing room, I was struggling as to think, were Dublin saying, lads, we have these, we're better than these, you can sense it, or were Kerry saying, we haven't even played yet and we're a point up? What was your sense at half-time?
To be honest, probably both teams would have been saying we haven't played yet. Like, Dublin probably had the better of that first half, so it was kind of roles reversal for them from the last 2 games, where against Mayo and against Monaghan, them 2 teams probably played most of the football in the first half, but Dublin found themselves a point up going in at half time, and this was a roles reversal from them with the goal just before half time. Obviously Clifford and Gainey, like, you know, Clifford's pass has been well talked about. I think Gainey's finish has gone completely under the radar, and I'd like to hear what Darren thinks. Like, when he gets that ball, the composure, it's probably the hardest ball to get in Gaelic football, because when he receives it, the keeper is already on him and he has to throw 2 dummies, and on the second one again to have the composure not to pick up the ball, to flick it up, and even at that he's to dummy back inside it for a 3rd time and put it under Clugston. It was unbelievable composure from Gainey, because he wouldn't have been human if he was thinking before half time, there's a good chance I'm going to be whipped here, because he'd left 1-1 behind him, hadn't been playing well coming into the championship. Gannon probably had the better of him in that first half, so I think that moment before half time was huge. And it looked like Kerry sprinted off the pitch. You could see O'Sullivan, Gainey, the boys, the half-time whistle goes not long after that, and Kerry are sprinting off the pitch, so you would have thought, yeah, Kerry are probably in a good position coming to half-time or going out to the second half. And in fairness, they brought that bit of bounce into the second half as well, into that 15 minutes. I think in the first 15 minutes, second half, Joe, they kicked 7 points, which when you compare it to the kick 4 in the whole of the first half, like, so that just showed, you know, that they brought that bounce, and it really looked like they were going to push on and get into that lead that we thought they'd need. We spoke about it last week. We thought they'd need to go 4, 5, 6 up and have Dublin chasing them in the last 15 minutes, and it looked like that's where the game was going to go.
Yeah. Darren, the Gainey goal?
Oh, sorry, I was in a world of my own. Yeah, I was, you know, it's funny, I was thinking the exact same thing as Colm, and I had, before the game, I had actually tipped Paul Gainey to have a big impact. I had chatted to Phil, I said, there's going to be a goal in this, and he'd missed one early in the game. Like Colm said, it wasn't going his way. And back to his mind, he got taken off at half-time in the All-Ireland final last year as well. Maybe form wasn't where he would have liked to have been going into this. He might have been having doubt, but his reaction to flick the ball up in the conditions and to compose himself and put it underneath Clugston was unbelievable. Look, everyone talked about the pass, and the pass was unreal, but the finish by Paul, I'll be honest, but look, we always say Clifford, but Paul Gainey in that position is as good as anyone. And just the reaction, because we've all been there where you're halfway through the action of doing a second hop, and just the speed of thought to flick it up to himself and save himself, because like that, I think if he gets called for double hop and it's another goal chance going, he's there going, I'm getting taken off here. Huge moment, because Kerry had not played in that first half. They were as slow in that first half as they played in a while. They were going in at half time, a point up, going, we haven't even hit second gear yet.
Yeah.
So it was a huge moment, and like that, they did look like that goal was the winning of the game to some degree, because they came out like a different team. Clifford came out for the second half like a man possessed.
Yeah, the third quarter had been talked about as well. Let's see what Dublin do. But if you remember, Mannion, who was pretty much immaculate throughout, he had like maybe 2 mistakes in an entire game full of mini mistakes from lots of different players. But one of his very few mistakes was on 39 minutes, he took a shot and he just skied it. He seemed to totally get under it. And then a moment later, Con had the crossbar effort. And from that, Paddy Clifford scored a point. That was like a 4-point swing. Kerry are up by 2. Then Gainey fists the point to go up by 3. Pascal gets one back, but then David Clifford gets one from play, and so Kerry lead by 3 points. And Clifford scoring that one from play, he'd got a free, and then that one from play at the start in the second half. And even he gave a fist pump as if to sort of say, I'm starting to motor here as well. And you really thought, okay, this is interesting. And then I think everybody, Jack O'Connor included, Colm, has pointed to the Paddy Small goal as crucial. Like what a surefire way to get back in the game level after Kerry's brilliant little burst, and you kind of ignite the hill, you ignite everyone, everything is possible once again. And ironically, because you were watching on TV like I was, Fitzmaurice had just made the point, it's interesting, Dublin have surrendered this kick out to Kerry, but obviously Pascal didn't get the memo. Brilliant by him.
Brilliant by him, yeah. I think he chased a lost cause, basically. You know, Gavin White in that position, you just back him all day to burst out of the fence, and you know, White had a quiet day for him. And I looked at his response after the goal, after Pascal intercepted him, and just thinking, was he carrying a knock going into the game? Was he at maybe 80-90%? Because it looks like he can't sprint back, you know, or was he just feeling it at that particular time? But it was brilliant by Pascal. But you're talking about a game at inches, Joe. Like, I think if Murphy doesn't actually block that, I think it's heading for Shane Ryan. He seems to have dived in the right way. Small is off his weaker right foot. Murphy gets the block and deflects it into the back of the net. And look, these are the things that can go for you. It's what happens after that then, Joe. You're expecting Dublin really just to go after Kerry, and I think Gannon kicks a wide straight away, but Darren said it there, Kerry go 3 back up, and that was absolutely huge at that moment. But I think it was the knock-on effect. That
was the Paddy Clifford show then. He scored 2.
It was just... It was unbelievable. Like, he literally put Kerry up on his back for 15 minutes and said, I'm taking the game here to Dublin. It was sensational. And David, in fairness to him, you know, I'd say he almost felt at the time, you know, I need to help out. I need to help out here. I need to get on the scoreboard. I need, you know, Paddy's doing it. Why aren't I doing it? And you could see then just what happened with the force and the shots. It was such a strange day for Clifford. Joe and myself and Darren were talking about this before we come on. Like, any other corner forward in the country kicks 2 points from play, does a worldly of a pass for a goal. I think he sets Seán O'Shea up for a point and wins the last free that levels the game, kicks a free as well. So has a direct impact of 1-5 in an All-Ireland final where your team scores 113. Like, any other corner forward, you're thinking that's an unbelievable day out. But it's just the fact that it's Clifford, the fact that he has then a couple of misses, you know, 3 or 4 big misses. And Fitzsimon's, like, what a battle that was. We talked about it last week. It was going to be huge, and it was sensational to watch.
Yeah, it's a painful thought for Kerry fans, Darren, that when Paddy Clifford scores his third in the 51st minute to put Kerry 3 ahead, 111 to 1-8 on 51 minutes. Paddy kicks his third. That great kick, that left footer high into the sky, great point. And that's on 51 minutes. The game went to 76, 77 minutes. Kerry have 1 more point from play. Rest of the game. Dublin win out 7-2. Kerry get a point from play and get the free. So Dublin again come from behind, from 3 points behind, but this time Dublin do it with points, not the Paddy Small goal. And you boys had both said Kerry need to be ahead going into the final 15, but geez, even you must be a bit disappointed that it was to that extent they needed to be ahead.
Yeah, I suppose everyone talked about it the last couple of games. Kerry have been so reliant on David, and the few times he might have been off radar, somebody else has stood up to be counted. Seán O'Shea did it against Tyrone. Paddy's done it at different stage of different kind of flickers of moments magic. And we just, having one player back him up was never going to be enough. And like that, like, David kept getting on ball, but he was looking for a big moment. I think that moment that kind of reignites the whole team, that gets the crowd back going, because momentum had been lost.
So you think shot selection was a bit ambitious here and there?
Yeah, look, I think some of the shots you're not going to criticise a man who can kick it from where he can. But
see, that's the thing, he's cursed by his own ability, because he probably looks at most shots and thinks, I could pull that off.
And that's the thing, he can. But sometimes, you know, when the radar's off a small bit or the pressure is just mounting, sometimes you do have to just keep it simple. Like Paul Ganey that time when he went in, punch it over the bar. You know, simple thing. And that was it. It looked like Kerry were, at times David looked like he was actually trying too hard. I think, you know, I suppose the weight of expectation, the pressure, everything that was at stake, Paddy had taken over the game. Paddy needed help. And I do think the first half where David was more or less starved of ball frustrated him. And as a corner forward, there's only so much you can do inside there when it is that type of game. You do get frustrated, you get a bit antsy inside, you start coming out, you're trying to get yourself into the game as well, and you're overdoing it. And look, he was on Fitzsimons, who had a great game, and marked him as well as anyone else, but it was just the radar was just a small bit off, and I think Kerry needed more backup. We just didn't have enough scoring threats.
Yeah, because in some ways, like Gainey with 1-1, Seán O'Shea very good first half, Paddy in that second half had his period. Like Darren Moynihan, very workmanlike, very involved. Like Stephen O'Brien did plenty, maybe didn't score as much as he would have liked. Like in some respects, lots of them did come to the fore. It was just never sustained enough, and then you throw in the couple of bad wides as well. What was your read, Colm, on David Clifford then? Because for a start, whether he turned off every radio, television, podcast, newspaper, I've never known a build-up like it. I've never known a final talked about literally through the prism of one player. And I know he's had that his whole life, but even he couldn't have been immune to that sense of who's going to mark him, what bearing is that going to have in the game, how many he's going to score this time, think what he did last year versus Shane Walsh. It's very hard to shut that out. It's really tough. Like a bit of sympathy for him in that respect.
Oh, hugely, Joe. Like I could only imagine what that'd be like. Like it's such difficult prep, and as you said, to try and block that out, as good as you were and as good as head as he has on his shoulders, it still had to be difficult. I think Darren's point on the first half and the lack of possessions, I think that is key. I think he got his score on the 6th minute. That's his first touch of the game. I don't think he touches the ball again until I think it's the 22nd or 23rd minute of the game. And I'd say in that 15-16 minute spell, I think there's a frustration building up here. Why am I getting the ball? The Kerry, Darren mentioned there, they were so slow transitioning the ball out, and then you could see for the last 10 minutes of the first half he was actually coming out into the half forward line and trying to link the play. So it was such a strange day for him. Some of the shots he took on, you're kind of thinking, it's David Clifford, he has that in his locker. Like, what is his range? You know what I mean? Does even he know, because he's such a range of shots. I think he'll learn a huge pile from it. I think for one thing, not to show your frustration after you miss your shots, and that's very easy for me to say in the last 15 minutes. What
would you know?
Yeah, exactly. But you could feel it building up, and every time the camera was going to him, you could see him scratching his head, shaking his head. There was a build-up of tension in the stadium. But I think, look, outside of Clifford, Aidan Spillane had a big one where he's coming in the in-line, but he takes a hop instead of taking the fist of point early. Tom O'Sullivan has a big one as well. I think for Kerry to win that game, obviously the 4 boys get the 4 scores from play, and Killian Spillane gets a point off the bench. They needed Tom O'Sullivan to chip in. They needed Gavin White to chip in. They needed a score from midfield, Jimmy O'Connor, Jack Barry. And all of a sudden then you have your extra 3, 4, 5 points, and it's taken the pressure a bit off Clifford.
Yeah, Darren, you might have a better sense, because I on TV there's just so much going on. You always need to watch the game back several times over. It was the inverse of the Derry performance for Seán O'Shea, whereby he was very involved first half and then just very little involvement for a second half where you need Seán O'Shea involved. What happened to him first half versus second?
I just think there was so much going on around the middle. Sometimes the game was just bypassing certain players for periods of time. Like, to be fair, like, that was kind of Kerry's problem throughout this season. Seán might do it one half, Paddy might do it another half. We had flickers of moments from different players at different stages, but we never had the consistency. Why that is, I don't know. The other part of that is they got tighter on him. Seán was very much around the middle. The middle was a war ground. Anytime you had the ball, it was within half a second you were getting hit, and hit hard. But I think a lot of Kerry's problem was just a slow build-up. We just didn't build up as well as Dublin.
Did Dublin impose that slowness on them, or were they just a touch tight themselves, or what was your read on that?
There was a bit of both. Like, I think Dublin obviously were getting bodies back, but I just think Kerry were a bit overcautious with the ball. I don't know, was it to do with the conditions or what? They did put in a few balls in the first half and they skidded it away.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, you do that once, you don't want to do it a second time. Or you've seen your teammate kick it away. You don't want to kick it away twice in a row, right? I keep it safe. It just doesn't suit Kerry. It slowed the game down. Dublin were very good. They were very disciplined. They got their bodies back. But while Kerry were slow with the ball, you'd look out and Shane Ryan was 50 odd yards from his own goal and there was nobody there, and you're thinking, Dublin had pace and power.
Yeah.
And they broke. Like, I think you remember Mannion's shot in the second half. Like, Mannion was on Jason Foley, who was like an All-Ireland hurdle champion. Like, Mannion pulled away from him. And bar the finish, it would have been the score of the game. Pascal as well was very direct. We lacked a bit of bravery, I think. There was a bit of caution there. There was opportunities where fellas actually could have taken on their man, and I think because of the conditions, everyone was tackling hard. It was a case of, I don't want to get turned over.
Yeah.
I think they will go away and they'll think we played within ourselves today.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah. Because, and maybe a broader thought then on Kerry's year, and we'll turn to Dublin in due course in a bit more depth. Curious for your thoughts on their season on the whole then, because whoever was going to lose this final, they were going to have the misfortune of being told, actually, you didn't actually beat anyone all year, you know, and so it's Kerry's misfortune. They win the All-Ireland last year. Everybody says, wow, the age profile, monkey off their back, watch this team kick on now, this is their team. Several of the players have long club championships.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.